What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? So we have a really special and what I consider to be a legendary video slash episode, whatever you want to call it. We got the legendary Bill Griff here, which I call just like the king of Criterion at this point. Um, Makes wonderful content. Really love his stuff. He's appeared on the Cinnabums podcast a few times. Bill Griff, if you want, you can introduce yourself to everybody. I'm really grateful to have you here.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Carlos. Hello, third guest, which is still a mystery. I'm very thankful to be on here. You best believe when it comes to Criterion, I'll always want to say my piece, say my 2 cents. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for the kind words and thank you for having me aboard, Carlos.
Oh, of course. Anytime, dude. Anytime. Um, all right. And the second guest I have today is also an absolute legend. He is also a man and he's also a myth. I am, of course, talking about Perry. What can I say about Perry? He's a lovable, intelligent person, um, who I am proud to call my best friend.
First of all, thank you for having me on. I'm so glad to get a chance to do this. A lot of people would actually kill to be in my position right now, to be a part of this video with Carlos and with Bill Griff, because I feel like your fan base, there's definitely an overlap there. So I'm very fortunate to be here today. Even though I moved away and I don't appear on the Misfit Pond as much as I used to, there's always going to be that dog in me that wants to make film related content with Carlos. I mean, he's my best friend. We're just kind of inseparable. We ride together till the end.
Hell yeah. We always find a way back to each other.
Yes.
um, Yeah, I mean, I feel fortunate. I'm in a room with two absolute legends right now. Of course, since it's July and it's still Criterion season, the topic that we all agreed upon today is five horror films that Criterion needs to release. So we're all gonna give, of course, five films that we all just feel like it's time. We don't know why Criterion has waited long for these, and honestly, horror in the Criterion Collection, I feel like is lacking. And when it comes to
Absolutely.
other genres, so I think this is to me like an awesome topic, and obviously horror is one of my favorite genres in filmmaking. So I'm really really excited about this list and to talk about all these films and to see y'all's films. Because I actually don't know what y'all picked. Like, there's a lot of times where I already know what films you guys picked. I have fucking no clue. So this is gonna be fun.
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear Perry say number two is going to be Five Nights at Freddy's.
I
Can't
can't
wait.
wait for Carlos to say "Wish Upon Us" is number one.
Perry's gonna be like, number one is Norm of the North, starring Rob Schneider, because
That is
that
a
film
horror film.
gave me
Yeah,
nightmares.
genuinely. Or what is that? Blood and Honey? Isn't that one of your favorites, Perry?
Oh God.
I heard the sequel ain't too bad, but it's only been released to like five people, so who knows? So I guess before we start this, do y'all want to talk about any films y'all saw recently?
I'm
Uh,
I'm I'm curious what Perry's seen recently. He's done some critical reappraisals.
so I just did a critical reappraisal for Nowhere since the since Greg Araki's Teenage Apocalypse trilogy is coming to the collection. By the way, I would like to point out that some of the films that we wanted to get Criterion release that we've talked about on Cinebums, that's coming to fruition. Like I mentioned it, I've been championing the Teenage Apocalypse trilogy for so long because I'm a huge Greg Araki fan. And Nowhere, upon rewatch, I actually think it's a great film. I mean, I think it's the weakest of the Teenage Apocalypse trilogy. I still prefer Totally Fucked Up and The Doom Generation. But I still think it's a great movie, and I think the dialogue, the nihilistic, edgy, crass dialogue, just really works for me. I love the production design. I think the performances are all really solid, except for maybe a couple of people. Um, but yeah, I just picked up on a lot more of the themes this time around, and I appreciated more what Iraqi was going for, and kind of the juxtaposition of the televangelist um, compared to the juxtaposition of the teen idol. Like I just see that as when I watched it, I'm like, oh, this it's like seeing the film for the first time because it just holds a whole new meaning to me, and I just feel like I was overly cruel, overly dismissive when I first watched Nowhere because I was still getting used to Greg Araki style. Because at the time when I watched Nowhere, the only Greg Araki film I actually liked was Totally Fucked Up, and I wasn't even that huge on Totally Fucked Up, but it's grown on me a lot since then. Um,
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I haven't rewatched Nowhere. I don't really have an interest to rewatch Nowhere.
oh
I just don't like that movie. I just too much about that movie that I really dislike at this point for me to go back and watch it. But what I will say is that um I watched the Doom Generation recently, and I actually like that movie.
yes,
Yeah, I enjoyed that movie. Again, it was a little bit difficult for me to get into it just because of the fact that, it's got that like weirdly unnaturally edgy like teenage dialogue going throughout it, but I feel like within the world that it crafted, it felt interesting and immersive, and um I think the thematic qualities of the film as well are quite strong that explore the kind of like oppressionist elements of America, especially when it comes to sexual freedom and things like that. I think are quite compelling, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that movie. So I don't know when it
if
comes. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if I had to describe it to somebody, I'd say it's if Jean-Luc Godard's band of outsiders met natural born killers. That's how I would describe it.
That's a
Interesting.
great description.
Yeah.
Very accurate.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's fine. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know because like the Gregor Rocky trilogy contains Nowhere, which is a movie that I really don't care for, but I did like the Doom generation. So I'm gonna watch Totally Fucked Up, and hopefully I enjoy that movie, so that way I feel more compelled to buy that box set when it comes out. I think either way I'll probably buy the box set because I did really enjoy the Doom generation. So um but another film that I watched recently is a Harmony Korine film actually. And it's a film, for those who know me, I'm not really that huge on Harmony Korine as a filmmaker. The only film up to this point that I've watched from him that I actually think is great is Gummo, which by the way is getting a Criterion release, which holy shit, that is
Another one of our
amazing.
predictions. Jake
Yep.
said he wanted that to come to the Criterion Collection, and look what's happening.
Yep, and that was in one of my videos. I think that was in my second video that I made about Criterion's that demand. I mean, movies that demand Criterion releases, and that was one of them. There's at least like 4 or 5 movies in both videos that I made of movies that have actually come out in Criterion.
Our this like the podcast, your podcast and Jake's podcast are basically the Simpsons when it comes to predicting Criterion releases.
That's true. um, but Julian Donkey Boy impressed me. I thought that was a compelling movie. I was surprised at first. I was like, here we go, like Harmony Korine doing just that kind of like absurd, edgy, a bit nonsensical, gross for the sake of gross kind of thing. But as it progressed, I started to seeing a lot of sincerity within it, and I really enjoyed it. Like I think like stylistically it really works. And I think that if you really like Gummo, I think you'll like Julian Donkey Boy because I felt like there was a lot of similarities between the two, not only in terms of like aesthetic approach, because there's like this really raw, grainy, like authentic element to it, but even like thematically, I feel like there's similarities to it. But yeah, I'll just say I watched Julian Donkey Boy and I really did enjoy that, and that's also something that I see coming to the Criterion the Criterion Collection at some point because of the fact that it's a Dogma 95 film and we already had the celebration, and I could see it like joining that film as well. So um anyway, Bill, did you want to say anything that you saw recently or
I honestly, there's nothing that really sticks out as a first time watch that I really enjoyed. I did rewatch a couple bangers over the weekend. I did an Eyes Wide Shut rewatch, which was just great to always see that film. It's such a timeless thriller. Um, if it was considered a horror film in the genre, I would consider that one of my five that should enter the collection. However, that's mostly like considered a thriller, which isn't technically horror, but that was great. I finally upped my score from a 9 to a 10 out of 10 watching that film. It's just so good. And then another movie which barely gets talked about a lot, Carlos, you have the same rating for this film as I do, is
Nice.
Werner Herzog's Grizzly Man. That
Oh yes.
documentary. Oh, that's
That
so good. Such a great one.
that is a that is such a fucking raw and horrifying documentary. Um, yeah, I was so engaged with that from start to finish. It's just such a like it served as like a gigantic cautionary tale in a way, but it's
It
just great.
does. Yeah. Um, I remember when I was a kid hearing about the Timothy Treadwell story, but not really knowing much of the details other than it's a guy who loved bears that eventually gets mauled to death by one. But the documentary, I think, is one of the most interesting character studies of someone who is purely obsessed with their passion and how it leads to their downfall. It's I feel like Werner Herzog is the only filmmaker to ever tackle that kind of story
That's true.
and to study that kind of person because his movies are it's like they're always a retelling of the Sisyphus legend of the man who always fails by trying to roll a boulder up a hill only for it to fall back down. Um, quite literally in Fitzcarraldo, which is another movie of his that I
Yeah.
saw recently. But yeah, Grizzly Man is kind of like that. It's a tale of a guy who dealt with alcohol abuse his his early life and just kind of lost meaning and where his direction of his where he would go, his direction, his passion. And I guess it just shows how he took all of his energy and all of his life into these animals. And there is something very conflicting when watching the documentary because you can see how much it saved his life, sort of. You could see the joy he felt while doing this, but you could argue that he was doing more harm than good to these animals by kind of interacting with them because eventually these bears are going to think that once they come across this good human, then all humans are going to be like him, when that's definitely not the
Yeah.
case. Poachers and hunters will definitely not think the same way as Treadwell did. And there is an interview with one of the park rangers talking about Treadwell within the film, and he says he was doing more harm than good. So there's something to be said about that documentary and just showing man's connection to the natural world and how after a certain amount of time, I don't know if there is a line to be drawn by that. And he crossed that line and he faced some consequences that I don't know. It is a very interesting documentary. I don't want to talk too much about it, but I really enjoyed it, especially on the second time watching it. And it's a it's a very underrated documentary. Have you seen it, Perry?
I have not, unfortunately.
I think you'd really enjoy it.
Yeah, me too.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, it sounds depressing as hell because it's about a guy mauled to death by a bear, but it's actually really funny. There's a few moments because you get to see the edited, condensed version of over 100 hours of footage he shot, and there's a lot of memes he did while doing there. Like he was just running around with foxes that
Yeah.
he
Oh
would
yeah.
befriend, and like I don't know, there was a scene where he came across a pile of bear poop and just stuck his hand inside of it and was like, "Wow, this is so nice." It's just, it is. He's such a kooky character,
Yeah. Yeah,
even
he
down
was a
to his
character.
voice. Like you hear his voice and you just would not picture that. to accompany what he looked like. Um, such a fascinating documentary, truly is. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's something I just saw last night and still
Mhm.
thinking about it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything you said. I think you put it very, very well. I honestly couldn't describe it better myself. Also, funny thing about Werner Herzog, he actually plays a character in Julian Donkey Boy.
Yes.
I heard about that. Was he good in it?
Oh yeah, he was great,
Yeah.
actually. He was fantastic. He's honestly like he's arguably the most fucked up character in the movie when you think about it. Um, but he did great. He did great. I think it's fascinating that he, was part of a Harmony Korine project like this.
The craziest thing to me is the fact he directed Bad Lieutenant 2.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a
I
great movie, but it's
I
oh,
really want to see that.
it's
I
so good.
It looks so fun. I saw
Yeah.
a clip on Instagram just scrolling through, and it's like Nicolas Cage looking at a pair of iguanas. He's like, "Why the fuck are
Yeah.
iguanas on my desk?"
And he
And
taps it.
then
He's like, what the fuck is that?
and
What
then
the fuck is that?
Val Kilmer just looks at him deadpan and is like, "What iguana? There's no iguanas on your desk." And I'm like, "What the fuck is this movie?" And then it cuts to like an iguana cam with
Yeah.
like an with like a TikTok kawaii filter on it, and
Yeah.
like there's a Tom Jones song that's blaring. It's
Yeah.
so weird.
That movie,
50
like,
Cent. 50 Cent is in it too.
Yeah.
I haven't even seen that movie yet, but I've seen like 3 or 4 different scenes from it. I'm like, I need to see this movie from start to finish.
So good. Also,
Uh,
hi Jen. I see you in the background.
Perry says
Jen's
hi, Jen.
lurking.
She's like, oh god damn it, and starts laughing. She's over there eating cheese and shit, eating chips and cheese.
Eating cheese. I respect
Yeah,
that.
yeah. We we we
Charlie
all we
Kelly
all respect
moment.
a good we all respect a good cheese eater.
I don't know if I respect that Falcons football right there above.
What? You don't
Above
Whoa.
respect this
above
shit?
above Mulholland Drive. Can't do it to him like that.
Rise up all day, baby. What you mean?
Yeah. And
Oh yeah.
what was who's the is it Matt Ryan? Matt Ryan was like, didn't we say earlier he's the Kendall Roy of the NFL?
I hate to say it, but he definitely is. He's such a fucking failure. Like he's always like this close, and then he just drops the fucking ball.
Yeah. All right. I'm so
Um,
sorry for bringing up sports in this beloved Kino, this sacred Kino
what?
podcast. My apologies.
What you mean? Sports is Kino, bro.
Sports is
I
Kino.
I wanted to shout out real quick since we're most synonymous for Criterion related content. Recently, I watched Masculine Feminine by Jean-Luc Godard, and I loved it. I think it's a great movie. I heard people say it's one of his best, and personally, I prefer Breathless, Band of Outsiders, and Vivra Savi, but it's definitely a great movie, and I think it's only going to grow on me with time. That's all I wanted to say.
Is Masculine Feminine a musical, or am I mistaking that for another
No,
movie?
no, it is not a musical.
Okay. So I'll probably like it then. I'm just kidding. I've actually
I
liked
mean,
musicals lately, though. I watched Singing in the Rain a few months ago, and I gave that a 10 out of 10. So
we love some character development.
yeah, yeah, and The Wizard of Oz. My
Oh
first time
yeah,
watching The Wizard of Oz, and I fucking loved it. So, um, anyway, I think we should go ahead and start this list.
yeah.
The people have waited long enough. Let's we'll start with Bill Griff. He'll give his number 5, and then we'll go to Perry. He'll give his number 5, and then I'll be last giving my number 5. By the way,
All of this is. Oh, sorry.
no, you go first.
I was just saying, all this is going to be timestamped. So if you just want to,
Yep.
if they don't want to, yeah,
Yep.
If they don't want to
Listen,
hear my picks, you can skip me. That's all good.
yeah. If you
no,
if you,
that's
if you
not what I
just
was going to say.
if you
No,
just
I'm just kidding.
if you just want to hear my picks, you could just timestamp, click all mine.
Yeah.
That's it. Just fuck these other 2 people.
If you want to hear Jen's top 5 cheeses in between, I think we can make that timestamp happen.
Absolutely. And also I was gonna say, like, I don't know about y'all, but the way that I crafted this list was not necessarily which horror film is better than the other, but which ones I think it's a mixture of quality versus how much does this film actually demand a boutique and quality release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I went about it. And also I went about it in like what's actually possible. Because there's some films that I would really love to see on Criterion, but the possibility of it actually happening is quite low because of like rights issues and stuff like that. So I put that, I put that as a huge factor when crafting the list as well. Um, but that's just the way I went about it. I don't know about you guys.
I went the exact same way.
Okay.
I went the greedy route. I just did 5 that I really want personally.
Beautiful. It's good to have a good mixture though.
Yeah.
Um, but all right. Well then you can start us off then, Bill. What's your number 5?
Okay. I actually don't have them in adult order. I just have 5 just sprawled out. So I'm gonna start with a film that I actually rewatched last week, and I can't help but think how masterful this movie is and how there already is a movie in the collection from Michael Mann. So number 5, Manhunter, 1986. It's just, I think it needs a release. It really is a special, special time capsule from the 80s. I know
It,
Silence of the Lambs is already in the collection. It's by number 13.
is it actually a horror film?
It is, yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. What I did was I went on Letterboxd, just did genre horror, and then sorted by my top ratings, and I saw it showed up. So we'll blame Letterboxd or Flint Slicker, one of them, if
No,
something messed up.
no,
Um,
I didn't know that. I mean, I haven't seen the movie, so I have no idea. I didn't know that.
yeah, me neither, honestly. I mean, there are moments of it that are very horrific and
Mhm.
disturbing. Um, just like Silence of the Lambs, but they're both movies that I feel like are crime thrillers first and foremost, with the horror sprinkled in there. But since it is considered horror, I just got to throw it in, and this movie's just been on my mind since my rewatch. Um, this movie is considered the first film to do the adaptation of Red Dragon, the Hannibal Lecter novel series, and is the first film interpretation of the serial killer himself, rather than Anthony Hopkins playing the cannibal man. We have Brian Cox, aka Logan Roy from Succession. That's that's to me his most notorious performance. So seeing a very, very young Brian Cox embody the serial killer was really a spectacle to witness. And honestly, I think he's really great in the role. Like it's hard to compare because these movies are both very different in terms of tone and story. In Silence of the Lambs, it stars Clarice Sterling, played by Jodie Foster, while Manhunter stars Will Graham, which is played by William Peterson. Two completely different vibes. One has cheesy 80s needle drops, like heartbeat at the very end. It has freeze frames. It has very, very vibrant neon blue and red and greens. It's totally different from the remake, but Manhunter, I think, is such an exciting thriller that doesn't have a 4K release, so I'm thinking, why not? And they've released remakes and originals before from Criterion. Most recently, I can think of is The Innocents and The Others. Both have a Criterion release, and those both are original and remakes, respectively. So I don't know, Manhunter, Michael Mann, just throwing that out there, throwing some Chad cinema to start with. So that's my first pick.
That's a really cool pick. I didn't see that coming. I wish I had more to say like in response, but I just haven't seen the movie. So I don't really know what to say.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say besides the fact that I'm really intrigued by the fact that Brian Cox is in the movie. I think that's really fucking cool. And he plays Hannibal Lecter, which is even more intriguing, so that's awesome.
And the star of the movie is the star of To Live and Die in L.A., and he's great in the movie. Um, I second Bill's pick because it's been years since I've seen it, but Manhunter is a great movie. The remake is mediocre, but it's probably Brett Ratner's best movie because Brett Ratner's a
Hey,
fucking
I will
actor.
I will not accept any Rush Hour 2 slander in this
No,
video.
I'm not going into that. I'm gonna stick with Manhunter. I'm not even touching that.
Fair enough.
But as much as I think I think Ray Fiennes is good, like really good as Francis Dollarhide. He doesn't hold a candle to the original actor. I would say like the original actor who plays Francis Dollarhide in Manhunter is incredibly disturbing. Like there is no saving this man, as opposed
Definitely,
to
definitely. Yeah. The actor is Tom Noonan, who is also in films like Synecdoche, New York.
yeah. And unfortunately, one of the RoboCop sequels, one of the shitty ones.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That's one of my blind spots. I still haven't even seen RoboCop.
Mm.
I know. All I know is that it has the dad from that '70s show in it. That's all I know.
Kurtwood Smith
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
is awesome.
that's all I know about it. But that's enough for me. But um, all right. I guess with that we'll move on to Perry. You go and give your number five.
My number five. This is only I'm more into classics than contemporary films. Like I love cinema in general. I just prefer watching classic movies. But this is the only classic film I have on my list. And this director actually has a film in the collection. It's actually from the same director as Kiss Me Deadly. I believe his name is Robert Aldrich. Um, it's from 1962. It's Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Um, I think this is a fantastic film, and Betty Davis, I think, is incredible in this movie. And her feud with Joan Crawford is, I mean, it's the stuff of Hollywood legend. I feel like this is a very important piece of filmmaking history, and it has to be in the collection. And I mean, this is from the same director as the original Longest Yard. Like I said, he directed Kiss Me Deadly, and he also did The Dirty Dozen. So he's got a lot of classic films under his belt. I've seen the OG Longest Yard. I have not seen Kiss Me Deadly or The Dirty Dozen yet. But Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, I think Betty Davis gives one of the greatest performances, not in just a horror film, but in film in general. I think she's absolutely fantastic, and you can really feel the feud between Betty Davis and Joan Crawford, and it really drives the tension in the film. Um, because for those of you who don't know, Betty Davis actually was a child star in the movie, and she wants to become famous again. And she's taking care of her sister who is disabled due to a car accident. And she's basically trying to hide her sister's existence until she can get rid of her. And her sister's played by Joan Crawford. So obviously, you can see how that feud would drive the tension of the film and how it just pours out on the screen. um, it may not be like a horror film in like a lot of people's traditional sense of a horror film, but it's definitely disturbing, especially for a film made in 1962. And I think it's a good complementary piece to Sunset Boulevard, which, as y'all know, Norman Desmond wants to be back in the limelight, much how Betty Davis wants to be back in the limelight in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. So yeah, I think it's a perfect film for the collection.
Nice. That's another film that I haven't seen yet. So I don't really have much to say, but it sounds like a film that I would like. So that's one that I gotta put on my watch list for sure, especially with the Sunset Boulevard comparison.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely influenced by it. If it's not influenced by it, I mean, it has to be the craziest coincidence ever because there's definitely some thematic similarities to Sunset Boulevard.
That's awesome. Well, you everything you said sounded really, really intriguing. Very well said. Um, but Bill, did you have anything to have you seen it, Bill, or no?
I think I have. I don't really remember, to be honest.
Um,
I respect the pick, though. I respect it greatly, but that doesn't ring a bell. Wait, let me look it up. I have to look it up. Yes, I actually have seen it. I logged it way back when. Yeah, but I just forgot a lot about the movie. Might have to do a critical reappraisal. I do have it at an 8 out of 10, so I did enjoy it.
Hmm.
nice.
Robert Aldrich is a great director. From the movies I've seen from him, definitely agree. So that's a pretty based pick, especially Betty Davis is such a great actress. And I do you know what, now come to think of it, yeah, it also stars Joan Crawford. It is a
Yeah.
pretty great film. Yeah, I agree.
Oh, and also, I mean, Betty Davis, she's in another Criterion film, and the she's in All About Eve. I mean,
Yep.
come on. So more Betty Davis in a collection. I mean,
And then Joan Crawford, of course, and Mildred Pierce, which is
yep,
a banger. Such
yeah.
a great
Oh,
movie.
Mildred Pierce is fucking masterful. I love that movie. All right. Well, if that's
What's
it, then
number five?
yeah, let's go to my number five. So my number five may not be the most exciting or unpredictable thing because I feel like I've talked about this film a lot on the channel at this point. Um, but this is a film that I love dearly. It's more of a contemporary film, and I don't know. I feel like if any A24 film is going to be on the collection, it's going to be this one, or at least it should be this one. And I'm talking about Under the Skin, starring Scarlett Johansson. Um, yeah, this is a movie that I mean, I talked about this recently on the top five on my top five horrors of the 21st century with Sammy's reviews. Um, so if you want to, hear me maybe talk more extensively, you should go watch that video. And also Sammy is just a wonderful person and a great reviewer, so you should watch it just for her as well. The audio quality is not the best, but that's because she lives in Egypt and it's not the best quality, which is my bad. I should have prepared for that. But anyway, yeah, Under the Skin. I mean, I can't think again like of a better horror film in the A24 catalog to go into the Criterion Collection because this film just has everything that you would want out of like an independent art house atmospheric horror film. It is fucking just the lingering sense of dread in this movie is some of the best that I've seen in a very, very long time. And that's huge thanks to not only like the cinematographer and the direction from Jonathan Glazer, but also just from the score from Micah Levy. Micah Levy's score in this film is insanely good. I mean, I heard of a screening in LA like a few years ago of a 35 millimeter screening of a live orchestra performing the score to this, and I like shat myself. I was like just wondering, like I was just dreaming of the fact that like hopefully one day I could attend something like that because that sounds like heaven on earth to me. Um, but the film was fantastic. Um, again, and I applaud Scarlett Johansson for taking a role like this that isn't something that's gonna like make her so much money, especially at the time. It's not something that's really she wouldn't take this role unless she genuinely really cared and had a passion for the art form. And I applaud her for that because as big of a star as she is, she doesn't need to be doing that shit, and she did it anyway. And yeah, it's just a wonderful film, really, in a nutshell, about humanity, whether it be the dark sides of humanity or the more lighter sides of humanity, whether it's about experiencing love or experiencing pure evil. And um, again, like I just feel like what really makes this film special, even beyond like its concept and its themes, is really the direction. It's a film that I feel like is intentionally paced in this very slow moving way to really build dread, build atmosphere, build suspense. And it's just crafted beautifully. And especially like with the ending of this movie. It is one of the most poignant and thought-provoking endings and haunting and beautiful endings that I've ever seen. It's just I felt such a mixture of emotions because of this film, and it's one of the earlier films that I watched in like my art film discovery journey, and I still love it. Like I love it dearly, and I do think it belongs to the Criterion Collection again because not only do I feel like it fits quite well in terms of content and approach to filmmaking, but this doesn't really have a good release from my opinion. Like from my understanding, this is like the only real release for it, and I feel like this movie deserves more than that. Like I could be wrong. Maybe there is a better release for this that I'm not aware of, but from my understanding, this is about it, and I feel like this film deserves more than that. And considering Uncut Gems, as an A24 film and has already made a collection, I feel like it will be fitting to, put in something put in something like this in there as well. So so yeah, that's it. That's my number five.
Nice. It's been a while since I've seen it. I need to rewatch it. I think it's a masterful film. I'm just bad about like rewatching movies.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something I want to rewatch soon because it's just been too long for me. What I really hate is I hate how people kind of say that anybody could have played ScarJo's role and it would have been the same experience. I don't agree with that
No.
at all.
Well, the whole thing is like the whole intention is that Scarlett Johansson in general, as the icon that she is today, is known for her like she in general in like a very conventional standard sense is considered like the apex of beauty, right? Like that
Yeah,
is like she is like in a way like a modern day like Marilyn Monroe or something where when you think of beauty like you think of like Scarlett Johansson.
yeah,
And that's kind of the whole point of the movie. Like get like that icon and put her in this role because the superficiality of beauty is also like a huge exploration in this film as well. And how like again like human beings especially men are very like unwillingly attracted to it and it's almost like out of their control like there's like a hypnotism to it. And I feel like, casting someone like her in this movie is like the most appropriate thing you could do considering like her status and her like cultural perception, as a person and as an
yeah.
actress.
I think one of the big takeaways from the film is the prettiest people do the ugliest things.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. It's like beauty and attraction get conflated with like morality and good sense of self and things like that, which is, again, it's a flaw in human thinking, but it's almost
Right.
like the automatic, like subconscious way that we just are wired to think.
Right. Not everything that glitters is gold.
Yeah, exactly. And not everything that looks like shit is shit.
Got him.
Look at Inland Empire. That movie looks like it's shot on a potato, and it's probably one of the most important films made in the past 25 years, in my opinion.
Based. All right. Anybody have anything else to say about the film or ready to move back
Uh,
to Bill?
it is a movie. It is certainly a
Oh yeah, I
movie.
forgot Bill's not too huge on Under the Skin.
Oh, do you not like that
No,
movie like that?
I
Oh,
don't
piece of
particularly enjoy
shit.
it. But I do like Glazer's other films. I can get glazed by any of his movies except for Under the Skin.
What do you
Uh,
not like about it? Out of curiosity.
Too much walking. I don't know. Just it just wasn't my flavor, it wasn't my style. There were a lot of scenes that felt meandering and I don't know. It's been a long time since I saw it, but when I watched it, I was not very huge on it at all. I did think that Scarlett Johansson was good in it. Definitely one of her better performances for sure.
Well,
I,
if I
I give
may, I would urge for a critical reappraisal,
Oh, I
if
yes.
would.
possible.
I definitely would for sure.
Um, I guess you can say Carlos's fifth pick really got. I'm sorry. His fourth pick. I'm sorry. His
Yeah.
fifth really got under your skin.
Well, I don't hate the movie at all, and I don't knock anyone for enjoying it. It was just one of my flavor.
I know. I was just being silly.
Well, all right then. On that note, Bill, you can go ahead and give your numero
Okay.
cuatro.
Yeah, I'll see. I think for number four, since I just brought up the man, I'm gonna go with Werner Herzog's Nosferatu the Vampire
Ooh.
from
Nice.
1979, starring Klaus Kinski and one of my favorite actresses of all time, Isabella Gianni, Bruno Gans, which is a Criterion Collection regular. The movie's just so atmospheric and intriguing, spooky, nihilistic, evil. It just is soaked with dread and despair, and that is something I absolutely love from a film, not to mention its gothic aesthetics. And as much as I enjoy the Nosferatu original from the 1920s, there is something about this remake that is so alluring to me. I can't help but enjoy it more. Of course, that's not to say Nosferatu, the original, doesn't belong in the collection. If it ever does, I would fully support that. But if, the gods if the gods allow it, I would definitely appreciate a Criterion release of Herzog's remake. I really enjoyed it. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I haven't seen it. I wasn't there for that discussion, so I never
Oh.
ended up watching the movie.
You'd like it. It's very lugubrious.
Yeah, I actually have this challenge that I'm going to start next year called "My Life is a Horror Movie Challenge." Um, to um, to um, to to catch up on a lot of like my horror blind spots.
Based. That's awesome. And especially when you're wearing the Possession t-shirt, it's just bound to be a Perry fave in my books.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. In terms of like, it's been a while since I've seen it. Because how long ago was it when we had that discussion?
I think it was October of 2022.
Yeah, that's almost 2 years now. Um,
Damn.
I remember a bit about it. I remember I liked it a lot because I thought like the use of score and I thought like the cinematography and the production design was outstanding. Um, Felt I was just very immersed in the experience for the most part. I thought that, and I thought like the performances are really good too. So that's a movie that I gotta watch again. For some reason, there I feel like there's a chunk of it that's not staying like in my psyche. But I do remember really, really enjoying that movie quite a bit. I think I would probably prefer the original Nosferatu get on Criterion before this one, but either way, like I wouldn't be mad either way. Also, speaking of that, I recently on the Discord server, which by the way, since I'm here, I might as well shill it. $5 a month on Patreon, you can join the server and discuss films every week, sometimes twice a week. But I think it was a week ago, last Monday, we talked about Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and I enjoyed that one. That
Very good.
was that was like took me like a little bit to warm up to it because I just thought like the presentation was just very like grandiose, a little bit outrageous, but there was like an epic element to it that I eventually like resonated with. And even though it's very like stylistic and very energetic and some would say very cartoony, um, it's it's a movie that I think like has a lot of impressive elements about it. Not only like the production design and the costume design and everything like that, but like I just feel like in terms of just like style, I think it works really well. And the performances, Gary Oldman in the movie, and even like Winona Ryder, fucking great. Keanu Reeves, on the other hand, I feel like he was a bit miscast, a little bit wooden in his performance.
I would
But
argue Anthony Hopkins is bad in the movie
ooh,
too. I think most of the performances in that movie are actually bad, and I really like the movie.
I would disagree. I think
I
the
think
only
it's
bad
more so
perform
the filmmaking. I think it's the filmmaking that kind of makes the movie more so than the performances.
I think the performances personally are all really good except for Keanu Reeves. I especially love Anthony Hopkins. I can't relate at all to that criticism. I think he is awesome. I think he's my favorite character in the movie, actually. I think he plays an excellent Van Helsing. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, I just think he's very like fucking quirky and dedicated to his like beliefs and ideology. and he is just like, I don't know, he's such a character in the movie, and um, I just think Anthony Hopkins does a great job. Honestly, I think Hopkins is. I think he should go down in history as like one of the all-time greatest actors to ever live.
I
Um,
agree.
I
he
think
Yeah.
is,
he's
yeah. Um, but anyway, this is. I'm sorry I made this about Coppola's Dracula.
Made it about a better vampire movie.
I don't know if I would say it's better actually. I don't know. I have to watch both. I not Francis Ford Coppola's, but I have to rewatch Herzog's Nosferatu again before I, make a judgment on that. But um yeah, anyway, I think it's an awesome pick regardless. Yeah, Perry, you're good. You're number 4 if you'd like.
my number 4, and this is actually one of my favorite horror films. It's whenever somebody asks me for a horror film recommendation, this is like one of the first films I name because of how underseen it is, and I think it deserves a cult following. A lot of people use the phrase, "Oh, this movie has a cult following," or "That's a cult film." They use it too frivolously. It's thrown around way too much, but I think this movie really deserved to reach cult status, and I think a second life in the Criterion Collection would really help it out. And that's actually May from 2002, directed by Lucky McKee.
Yes.
My thing is, when people are like, "Oh, when I think Criterion Collection, I don't think Lucky McKee." I'm like, well, when you think Criterion Collection, you don't think Herc Harvey either. And yet, Carnival of Souls, I mean, definitely deserves to be in the Criterion Collection. I'm not comparing May to Carnival of Souls. They're obviously very different horror films from very different times. I'm just saying, I don't think all films in the Criterion Collection need to come from beloved auteurs. I think that there are those one hit wonder filmmakers that should get into the collection. And it's less about them and more so about the film itself. I think May is a fantastic character piece. For me personally, when it comes to horror, I like stuff that's more less plot driven and more character driven. And I like my horror a lot more psychological, um, as opposed to something because I feel like my most visceral reactions from horror come from like the more psychological character pieces than the conventional jump scare nonsense. um but yeah, I think Angela Bettis is fantastic in this film, and I mean it's unfortunate because like the rest of her career, like she wouldn't have a performance that comes close to this, but that doesn't matter. She's incredible in this movie. I think she captures what it's like to be like socially awkward perfectly. I think, and I think it's a very relatable film in terms of how it deals with loneliness, how it deals with the frustration of trying to acclimate socially with the world around you, and how difficult it is to kind of find love if you're an outsider. I think a lot of people can relate to that. I definitely relate to that on a personal note. Um, and I think the not just Angela Bettis, but I think Anna Faris is absolutely hilarious in the movie. And I mean, in terms of like filmmaking, like Lucky McKee, he's like he's no like, I wouldn't call him like an auteur. Like he doesn't have like the mise en scène of a lot of filmmakers that you associate um, with with the Criterion Collection. But nevertheless, he still made a great movie. Like even if it's more so like the script and the performances, it's still a great movie regardless. I think the way the music is incorporated in the film is very well done. I think the climax of the film is incredibly satisfying. And it's funny because I've been reading Quentin Tarantino's cinema speculation, and he mentioned how, and when he was talking about Dirty Harry, or not Dirty Harry, but he was talking about a film, and he says it takes a brilliant filmmaker um, to get you on the side of a person who's not the most morally upright, and you are sympathetic to Angela Bennett, even though she does a lot of questionable shit in the movie. And I think that speaks volumes for how compelling the script is and how compelling the performance is. I just think it's a really underrated horror film, and it needs a second life in the Criterion Collection.
Yeah, I'm so glad you picked that movie. I thought about picking that movie, but it got beat by a few others. But
Mm,
no, May is a fucking awesome movie. I'm pretty sure you're the one that like recommended it to me, or at least you were one of like the few that did back
yeah,
in the day.
it's one of my $50 patron picks back in the day.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, and that movie's awesome. I really like that movie. Really great performance. And like you said, like I do think that it does do a great job. Like it almost kind of has that like Joker effect where it's you could like the main character is
Yeah,
like progresses into a psychotic evil person, I guess you could say. But to see what led up to that point makes you at least either relate to the character or at the very least like kind of understand why they would be the way that they are. But it's good. And also has really awesome like autumn fall season vibes too.
yeah.
That I really enjoy a lot. It's very cozy in that way.
And it's darkly comedic. It's actually a lot funnier than you think it would be. From the description, it's actually a hilarious movie, and you get an appearance from a Greg Araki regular. What's that guy's name? Why am I blanking on his name?
I don't know his fucking name.
Oh, James Duvall. You get a James Duvall appearance, and plays a very eccentric character with an insane hairstyle, and he's very entertaining.
Yep.
So there's that too.
Yep. There's also themes in this movie about like sexual repression as well.
Yeah,
That I think are really well handled. But yeah, definitely. I'm really glad you picked that because I feel like May doesn't really it doesn't really I feel it doesn't have enough eyeballs on it. It doesn't really have like you said, like I'm glad you brought up that it doesn't have like that cult following. Like it does, but not enough. You know what I mean? Like it
yeah,
needs more. It needs to have a stronger cult following than it already does.
yeah. I see what you did there. It doesn't have enough eyeballs on it. That was good.
There you go.
Not to mention, I think it's a great complementary piece to Eyes Without a Face in a way. Like I can definitely see an Eyes Without a Face influence on May, personally speaking.
That's true, which is another great Criterion horror film. Um, have you seen May, Bill, or no?
Nope, I have not, or else I'd comment on it. I
Uh,
do have it on my watch list, so and I was browsing while you were talking about it, Perry. The way you described it sounded really interesting to me, and I was browsing for where it's available. It is on Tubi, so I might just say fuck it and watch it tonight
Hell
because
yeah.
it sounds really awesome to me. And especially ending it off by saying it's like Eyes Without a Face. I love that movie, Eyes Without a Face, so thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's very different, but I definitely
yeah,
see like
Yeah.
a tinge of Eyes Without a Face influence. Very slight, but I think there's something there.
Okay. Cool. Either
Um,
way, though, thank you for the rec.
of course. Oh, and Tubi is the best streaming service.
yes. Long live Tubi.
Tubi is so good. No one ever talks about how great Tubi is. I
They
can
have,
look up it. They have the most niche cult
yeah.
films on there. Like I remember I watched Irreversible for the first time on Tubi, and Martyrs and Terrifier 1 and 2.
Did
Like,
you get a commercial during the irreversible rape scene?
no, thankfully I did not, but I could have soon. I know I got one in Enter the Void during like the Love Hotel with the
Yeah.
cum shot.
Oh
As soon as
boy.
that showed up, it just turned to like a progressive ad or something or Geico.
It'd be funny like if you start watching Irreversible and as the sexual assault scene is happening, it just commercial breaks and it's brought to you by State Farm and you're like, well, I'm glad I switched to progressive.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just
basically.
just right in the middle of the rape scene, you get Whopper, Whopper, Triple Whopper.
It's like, I don't know what's worse, this fucking rape scene or Burger King.
Yeah, but
Fucking
you were talking
genocide
about
spores.
you were talking about eyeballs in May. What if when that scene shows up, you just get an ad for like the what is that, the Tide Pods or something? Tide Pod sandwich.
The Tide Pod sandwich. Oh shit.
Better yet, a LASIK eye surgery podcast or crafters ads, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh shit. All
All
right,
right,
well,
what's your number 4?
all right. So my number 4 is a film that I debated a little bit putting on here, but I decided to do it after further discussion with some folks in Discord. I'll shout out Chili. I just know him as Chili. I don't know his real name in the Discord. Um, but and also, you know what? I'll go and I'll shout out Charlotte too because she's the one that brought it up first. But this is a film that I love dearly. I have a review for it. By the way, like I think most of these films I have reviews for. So if you want to hear more extensive, well thought out reviews, go watch those videos. But this is a this is a film that kind of falls in the more like B grade side of horror, but it's masterful. And I'm talking about a film called Dead Alive or Brain Dead. And this is a film that, again, at the time, I did not think I was going to love this movie that much. It's directed by Peter Jackson, obviously the director of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And this is the most bonkers and effortful and creative, blood splattered piece of entertainment that I've ever seen, I think, on film. It is just so dedicated to sheer insanity from start to finish. And there's just such an influential element to this film, which is one of the reasons why I decided to include it on the list, because I feel like when it comes to the kind of bar it's set for B grade horror and like just gory cinema and practical effects cinema in the horror arena, I feel like it really set the bar high and made it to where other filmmakers after this felt like they had to again kind of like meet that, like they had to meet that line. And it is just filled with just like, oh my god, like scene after scene, just sheer and like this has one of the most absolutely bananas third act I've ever seen. It is nonstop, just blood and guts and fucking zombies and just like large scale practical effects and makeup effects, and it's just so fucking entertaining. And again, this film might not be for everybody, because if you're not into this kind of shit, you're not gonna like it, I guess. But I wasn't really into this shit really when I went into it, but I still fell in love with it because it was just so undeniably entertaining and undeniably impressive in terms of the amount of effort and like creative effort that went into it. It is just, again, just like nonstop insanity, and it is very admirable to see like how much effort went into crafting this film. And on top of that, it's just funny, it's dumb, and you just can't help but just having just a blast with it. And I just love this movie a lot. I love it to death. And um, again, like as I was talking to Chili in the Discord, he mentioned that like Peter Jackson has the rights to this movie. Like he has all the rights to it. He can basically release it in whichever way that he chooses. And I don't remember all the details, but apparently there's a lot of like physical media politics involved to where at this point the Criterion Collection is at the most likely boutique release company to land this title. So I mean, I would love a box set of like Brain Dead and Meet the Feebles and Bad Taste, even though I've never seen Bad Taste or Meet the Feebles. But I feel like if I love Brain Dead, I would probably like those. Um, Perry, no. But I don't know. I feel like the absurdity and the B grade element is like if I just like that, I'm probably gonna like that. And I feel like huge fans of Brain Dead and Dead Alive will probably at the very least get a kick out of that as well. Um, Either way, I don't know. I just love this movie, and I feel like even though I feel like in terms of content, it probably fits more with Arrow or like Vinegar Syndrome. Again, there's a lot of physical media politics involved that I think makes Criterion the most likely landing spot. Um, so yeah, Brain Dead, Dead Alive, fucking masterful film, an absolute blast, and I would love to see that on the Criterion Collection because right now, like in terms of releases, it doesn't really have anything. It's just like lost in the abyss and it needs something.
Brain Dead is
Yeah.
so much fun. It is a very fun movie. It's one of those movies that you don't need any sort of logic when going in. You just shut your brain off and you have the time of your life while
Yeah.
watching it. And I think that Criterion honestly could benefit from adding those kinds of movies into their collection because those are just as impactful to the history of cinema than, like, I don't know, a highbrow horror film or anything. And
Yeah.
that's not to say that there's no artistic merit to Brain Dead. I think it's one of the most artful horror films ever made, but it's artful in a sense where it is just caked in gore and, like you said, sheer insanity that you can't help but call it a spectacle and an important footnote in the history of film. That's a great pick. I completely forgot about Brain Dead. Um,
Thank you.
Great movie. And I didn't know that there isn't really a good release for it out there and that Peter Jackson's just holding on to that like a little golem gremlin. He needs to release that out into the open, let the bird fly,
Yeah.
let it leave the nest. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Bill took the words right out of my mouth because I definitely think, as far as cult films, there's definitely a Criterion needs more to scratch that niche. Because if you look at like the cult films and the Criterion Collection, you got Repo Man, you got like Ghost World, but you don't have too many films like that. Like Repo Man is an exception. It's not like by any means coming close to the standard. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying like they need to match like the highbrow art films that they release by releasing just as much,
Yeah.
more cult movies. I'm just saying there needs to be more of it. And not to mention, I think Brain Dead has the best chance of any Peter Jackson film getting in the Criterion Collection because you got to
Yeah.
think Lord of the Rings already has an amazing box set, doesn't need to be in the collection. The Lovely Bones, piece of shit movie, doesn't even need to be in the collection. Doesn't even need to be in the conversation.
No.
Um, King Kong 2005 mediocre movie doesn't need to be in the collection.
Yeah, get
And
out of
I
here.
I personally don't like Meet the Feebles. I have not seen Bad Taste yet, so I'm not going to speak on that movie. But I've heard a lot of people shit on that one, but I haven't seen it. So yeah, like Dead Alive just seems like the most logical sense. And personally, it's frustrating for me because like I love like cult horror movies. Like I love a lot of Giallo films, but all these films are in like Arrow and Vinegar Syndrome. It's like, why do they get all of those movies and Criterion gets none? And it's like, no, Brain Dead needs to be the fight back against that. Um, because I think it's I pretty much almost specifically buy Criterion. I don't buy a lot of Vinegar Syndrome or Arrow, and it's frustrating that like a lot of my favorite horror films are part of a boutique Blu-ray that I don't even Blu-ray companies that I don't even support that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, that's the case with some of the other films that I have on my list. One in particular that we'll get to eventually. But yeah, I agree. Like, especially at the end of the day, where you can't really use the highbrow argument when you have films like Solo in there. Not saying like, Solo's necessarily a bad movie, but it's not like highbrow art, like in a way that it's still like, it's
Well,
Solo is a weird combination of what people consider to be highbrow art, but also schlock at the same time. Um, and you have films like even like Antichrist, which is, you know, Yeah, again, like people consider it highbrow art, but at the same time, people consider it like very just like outrageously graphic and shocking.
It's elevated Euro trash horror, is what it is. I
Yeah,
mean, Antichrist is heavily inspired by Possession. It is definitely elevated Euro trash horror if I've ever seen it.
yeah, and I just think like I don't know. Like you said, I think that Criterion kind of needs to recognize more like the influential impact that films like Brain Dead have had on cinema in general.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad that y'all agree and that y'all like the pick because I think it would be awesome to have this in there.
Don't you
I,
think it's lugubrious? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
what is lugubrious? No, I want to hear.
I was just saying, don't you think it's lugubrious as hell that we may never see like an Italian horror film from like one of the Italian masters in the Criterion Collection? Like we'll never see an Argento or Fulci film in the Criterion Collection. Like to me, that's a little upsetting.
That is upsetting for sure. I think they could benefit from a box set from one of the Giallo masters. That would be
Yeah,
really cool. Yeah.
yeah,
That's not to say though that they're not listening to us with releasing cult classics because just in the last two announcements, Criterion has released two films that the community have been pleading and begging with them to do for years, that being Happiness and Gummo.
yeah,
Those
Yeah,
two films are definitely cult, edgy movies that aren't really considered highbrow by the broad film community, but I do think that both those movies are very important to film history. And I would add them in there with, like you said, like Solo and Antichrist and Pink Flamingos and
yeah,
um what is that? And also Brain Dead. Brain Dead could fit in there.
yeah.
And now that Criterion is finally listening to the fandom and they're really trying to add in these highly requested films. Probably they're being helped by Stephen Rail's little influx of cash when he bought the company. That definitely has been helping, I think, with their releases so that, hopefully they will release something like that in the future. You never know. But as long as we just keep asking for movies like this, I think they'll always deliver because they know what the community wants and they love the community. Criterion is one of those few companies that really does listen to its consumer and will eventually hear us out. And that's what I like so much about them, especially their customer service is fucking top tier. It's
yeah,
incredible. Their
yeah.
customer service is some of the best you could ever ask for in any brand from physical media.
Yeah, because I've dealt with other companies and their customer service just doesn't come close to Criterion. And people are like, "Oh, you're just a basic bitch Criterion head," and it's like, "Oh, I'm sorry that they're that they got the best customer service and they got the best fucking titles. I'm like, what do you want from me?"
Yeah, they even have an email that you can ask. It's suggestions at criterion.com where you can email them about films you'd like to be seen in the collection. I remember I did that back in 2020 or I think it was late 2019. I might have asked them to release Beasts of No Nation, which is a Netflix original, because I think that at that point Criterion was really struggling with adding films about black stories. And I think that that's one of the most interesting films to come out in the 2010s depicting an African country. And what do you know, 2 years later, they released Beasts of No Nation. And I had the primary argument. I wrote an essay on why they should add that movie. And one of the primary arguments was because of their Netflix deal and because they're in desperate need of some contemporary black stories. And
It's
boom,
fucking
what do you
epic.
what do you
Yeah,
know? So I think that they do listen to the fans. Not to say that I'm the one person they were like, "Oh yeah, Bill's right. We should
Yeah,
we should add Beasts of No Nation." But I think that there was like there were a bunch of people to request these certain movies. Like look at After Sun and Inland Empire for instance.
yeah,
Would they have really added out After Hours without every single post they've had? Just all the top comments are people telling them they should add After Hours. I think that we do bully them in a sense to eventually release their movies. And
yeah.
with happiness coming out in Gummo, that just shows that it works. It really does work. So if we all mass together to do that, we can make things happen for
You
sure.
heard it here, kids. Bullying works.
Bullying
Bullying
works.
Bullying works. Bully
works.
companies. I
Yeah.
support that. Bully companies, what are they? They're not real. They're not real people.
Companies aren't people.
No.
Yeah.
But but yeah, like I wanted that myself because again, I put the celebration in the first video I made about movies that demand Criterion releases. I put the celebration as my number one, and I'd like talked endlessly about why it deserves to be on the Criterion and why it's a great movie. And I don't know how long it was, but less than a year later, I got what I wanted. And, I'm not saying I was the only one. Obviously, there's probably a shitload of people that were asking for the same thing, but it was probably because me and along with, a good flock of people that were really asking for that movie, it's why it happened. So,
Did I
yeah.
not ask for Train Spotting? And then look what happened a couple months after that release.
Yeah, it's true. Very true.
All right. You
All
want me to
right.
do number three?
All right. Number three. Oh, that's I goes to Bill actually, right now.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. My
Perry
You're
can do
good.
my number three for me. I think he'd be good at it. No, it's all good. Um, you know what? I'll be quick about it too, because my number three is a film that released last year. It's a movie that I was completely blown away by because I didn't think that it would ever it would ever be as successful as it was when it came out. It's one of those movies where you look at a trailer, you look at any sort of marketing material, and you're thinking, "Oh, that's gonna be dog shit." Okay, cool. But I went into the theater with an open mind and I was completely blown away. And so was most of the film community that did see it. I'm talking Godzilla minus one from 2023. This I to mention movies that definitely could be added, this is one of those that certainly could because it was produced by Toho. And Toho has a deal with Criterion where they've released all, a lot of their classics, including the entire Showa era of the Godzilla films. And considering that Criterion just added a few other Godzilla films into their channel, and they're probably going to release that into a box set, that secondary era. I'm spacing on what it's called. I think it's called Heisei era or something like that. I don't know. But Godzilla minus one, I could see that being added. Why not? It's a good movie, good CGI, good monster flick. I like seeing things crash together, and a good old monster movie would be fun. And they would get lots of sales if they added minus one. Currently, there is no US release planned at all for the film. That makes me wonder if Criterion is planning something like that because that was the case for All of Us Strangers. There was no Region A release planned at all for that movie, and then the Criterion announcement came. So maybe they do keep their releases under wraps. So when you see a popular movie that doesn't have any physical media release date, that is kind of artful, that is culturally significant, I'm thinking, okay, it might have a chance at Criterion. And this is one of those movies that might have a chance. So that's my pick.
Yeah, I think in
Uh,
terms of whether or not it fits in the Criterion Collection, I think is pretty solid. Again, considering that they already have released like classic Godzilla movies, and I also think that it kind of it kind of encapsulates almost like the collective passion of cinema because it was made on such a low budget, and if it wasn't for like people that believed in this project and believed that they could make this film on such a low budget, they came together to produce it. It kind of shows you like again like why we love cinema in a way. Um, and yeah, I mean whether or not it's a horror movie, I mean I think it's a little bit debatable. Um, because I mean personally, I would probably consider this more of like a sci-fi disaster action movie, I guess. Um, but there are horror elements to it though, for sure. But anyway.
yeah, I think it's a great movie. I think it belongs in the collection as well. Um, my number three, and I didn't even look if this A24 has a release for this movie or not, and frankly, I don't care. I just want this movie in the collection. It's It Comes at Night by Trey Edward Schultz. Um,
Love
I
that.
think it's criminal that Trey Edward Schultz, like, he's been killing it on the indie scene, and he doesn't have a film in the collection. I mean, Waves is fantastic, Krisha is fantastic, It Comes at Night is excellent, and I think a lot of the themes that Mikkel Hanukkah tries to tackle in Time of the Wolf, which personally I'm not a fan of. I think that's probably Mikkel Hanukkah's only misstep in his otherwise impeccable career. I feel like It Comes at Night takes the theme of Mikkel Hanukkah's time at the Wolf and really fleshes them out and does something really interesting with it. And not to mention, I think this film unfortunately got too much hate because of the horrible mismarketing. So again, I think a second life in the Criterion Collection would make a lot of the doubters, maybe come around and see like what the appeal of the film is. I mean, in terms of psychological horror, it has to be one of the best that I've seen within the past decade. It's a horror film that is so incredibly bleak, it will leave you with a sick feeling in your stomach. Um, but it's not misery porn. It's not misery for the sake of misery. It's a very cautionary tale about humanity and about letting our paranoia get the best of us. And letting our paranoia, just kind of take the wheel and steer. Like, it's gonna end in disaster 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, if we let our paranoia get the best of us. Not to mention, you have plenty of actors that are really great actors in it that are also in a lot of good indie movies. Like, you have Kelvin Harrison Jr., who's in Loose, and he's also in Waves. You have Christopher Abbott, who's also in Possessor, and he's also in, I believe it's called Black Bear with, yeah, I believe it's called Black Bear. But yeah, it's I don't know. I think this, like, when I saw it back in 2017, I was disappointed with it. It wasn't until I came back to it late a couple years later that I appreciated it a lot more. And it's still my favorite Trey Edward Schultz movies. Like, um uh I prefer it over Waves and Cretia, which I know might be a hot take, but I think it's an excellent movie. And I, I I've never seen a, like, it's very rare you see a film that could give you such a visceral reaction the way this film uh gives you a visceral reaction. It's incredibly well done.
Yeah, dude. I think that's an excellent pick. You're right. It doesn't have a good release, which I think is a shame. And it's, dude, this is one of those films where it came out and like the general audience that feel like they were mismarketed. Look, this movie gets a bad rap because they say that it was mismarketing. I kind of have a hot take. I really don't think it was that much mismarketing. I just think that people are so accustomed to like normative horror and so much Hollywood horror
Mhm.
that they expect certain things out of a horror movie. So when they go into it, they want to see A, B, and C. But just because this movie was marketed as a normal horror film doesn't mean that like that it's fair that like, oh, you didn't get every normal thing that you expected out of it.
Right.
Um,
They were expecting zombies to show up at some point in the movie and attack
yeah.
everyone.
Like they wanted like a full-fledged apocalyptic like viral outbreak zombie fucking movie. And whatever, like, I don't necessarily fully blame them for going into it that way, but like I don't blame the marketing at all for, trying to get more people into the seats because for me when I watched this movie, I didn't expect that shit because I already knew the kind of movies that A24 distributed, right?
Mhm.
I knew that they wouldn't just put out like a normal apocalyptic movie. But if you're just somebody who doesn't pay attention to that shit, like of course you're gonna go into this movie expecting something completely different and normal. Um, but I don't know, to me, like I watched the trailer like a lot before I went to this movie, and I got like exactly what I personally wanted out of it, which was this very dark and haunting exploration of the human condition. Um, and I just love movies like this that really like don't hold back in terms of kind of like exposing how fucked up we are as human beings when it comes to
Yeah,
maintaining our survival. Um, because when survival's in the picture, and we know that like right now, like as we speak, survival is our toppest priority because of certain circumstances, bad things are going to happen.
yeah,
You cannot, you can't prioritize survival without fucked up things happening.
right.
And I think this film just like really, really expressed that beautifully. And especially with like the ending. I only saw this movie one time, once in the theater, back in 2017. And I still remember so much about it. I still
Yeah,
remember like all of the integral things that this film was trying to express. And again, like I still remember the ending very clearly. I'm not gonna like spoil it or anything for those who haven't seen it, but the ending is very like it's so fucking like to the point. It's so like again, like I think ends on a very conclusory approach that encapsulates, I think, thematically what this film was going for. Again, about like survival and the human condition and our darker elements regarding that. And it's just honestly, I would love to see this film again because I remember loving it, and I feel like I'd rewatch, since 2017, which is basically how long, like fucking 7 years later. I would love it even more. So, um, I think that's an excellent pick. Doesn't have a good release for some reason, and just you talking about it alone makes me want to watch it again.
what do you think of it, Bill?
I was absolutely bored to tears when I watched the movie back in 2017.
Yeah,
Um, I'll give it a critical reappraisal at some point. I feel really bad. I feel like there's a few movies you guys have been picking. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a movie. We haven't been I haven't been clicking with the magic other than Brain Dead. And I feel bad about it, like Under the Skin and I haven't seen May, so I can't comment. But the fact that I couldn't comment made me feel bad. And then It Comes at Night. I don't know. I guess I'm not on the same wavelength with the horror films, at least with the contemporary horror films like those two. Um,
Well, so far you haven't really been jiving with like the A24 horror films, actually.
yeah, that's what I meant. The A24, the contemporary horror movies. So, um, but yeah, It Comes at Night. It looks really good. I will say the visual aspect of it's very nice. I can't help but praise Trey Edward Schultz's cinematography that he does in the films, or at least the cinematographers that he utilizes. I really enjoy the aesthetics of his movies, particularly Krisha. Krisha's probably
Oh yeah.
his best, in my opinion. And
I don't know
yeah,
what I would say is his best. It's tough for me, honestly, because I love all of them. I love Krisha, It Comes at Night, and Waves.
yeah,
I actually might say Waves is his best, personally. It's tough.
mm,
Um,
yeah. Waves has the best look to it, and then I think Krisha has the best story and performance.
that's fair enough.
yeah. I don't want to say It Comes at Night is his best, but I think it's the film that speaks to me the most, which
Yeah.
says a lot about me as a person, personally.
You nihilistic bastard.
Yeah, I might have to do a double feature of It Comes at Night and Under the Skin and just dive
Please.
into that slow
Like,
cinema
Well,
dread.
especially since you haven't seen It Comes at Night since 2017. That was 7 years ago.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a movie night.
I
Oh, that
will
sounds
do.
good.
I would do It Comes at Night after Under the Skin, even though Under the Skin's the better movie because It Comes at Night you're gonna want to throw up at the end of it. It's so sickening to
It's so
watch, and
bleak.
yeah, it's so bleak. There's like this droning ambient noise the entire time. Like it just keeps you on the edge of their seat. It's like a damn ride. You just want to get off of it, just fucking puke afterwards.
Yep.
And I think the thing about It Comes at Night, it does what I think most seminal horror films does. It follows something called KISS. Keep it stupid simple. Have a very simple concept and just explore that concept very well. You don't have to be heavy on plot. Just have a very simple concept and expand on that, and that's it. Keep it stupid simple. I mean, Halloween. Look at it. Michael Myers. He has no motivation. He's just evil incarnate. Keep it stupid, simple.
There you go. Never heard of that, but I like it.
I stole that from Red Letter Media, that channel I've been telling you to watch.
Oh, nice. Um, all right. With that being said, I'll go with my number three. Let's see. Okay, this is an interesting one. Um, all right. So my number three is a very, very old Japanese horror film. Uh, this is a film called A Page of Madness, which came out in 1926, which is directed by Tienosuke Kinogasa. Um, this is a film that I feel like does not nearly get enough credit for. I feel like not only how impressive it is in terms of vision and creativity for the time, but I feel like how influential it was towards surrealist and like horror filmmakers that came later on. When I watched this film, it gave me a strong Lynchian impression. And I don't like using the word Lynchian because I feel like that's just another word to say surreal. Um, but when I watched this movie, I couldn't help but feel like filmmakers like David Lynch were influenced by this film style, whether it be consciously or subconsciously. There is, again, for 1926, there is so many different filmmaking techniques, whether it be on set or in post production, that have to do with just like layering images on top of each other in the way that it does and editing them together. And again, 1926, they're doing all this shit by hand in a very like vigorous and like, tedious process where they're doing this very experimental style of layering so many different film celluloids together. And it's just a very like psychological and surreal and nightmarish and experimental piece of cinema that I feel like was way ahead of its time. And it's beautiful looking. Like in terms of cinematography and direction, it is in a lot of ways timeless. And um, a core of this film has to do with like in terms of the setting, it takes place like in a psychiatric ward. And there's a lot more to it than that, but it's just I think the presentation, again, it's 1926, so a lot of it is about presentation. Like, is a lot like is a huge reason why this movie is so special. Um, and I feel like it fits in the Criterion Collection because it's historical as fuck. Um, like again, I think it's incredibly influential when considering the time that it came out, and and needs to be preserved in the best way possible. So, um, yeah, and again, it's a very haunting and unsettling film that's very effective in its atmosphere and immersion. The score that was made for, I don't think it was made at the time, but it was made. The score that you could access most popularly now was fantastic. So yeah, Page of Madness. I don't know how many of you guys out there have heard of it or have seen it, but this movie rocked my socks, and I would buy this day one if it came out on Criterion.
Yeah, I like the film. I haven't gone back to it because I remember. I think uh, I'm pretty open minded. Like when it comes to film in general, I love like film from all different decades, all different eras of filmmaking. But I guess the filmmaking I have like the least, if I had to pick one, is probably silent film. uh,
Mm.
I guess like a Page of Madness, it being a silent film, there is like that bit of a bias coming in. It's like silent films aren't my favorite, even though I do love films like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Like there are a few exceptions of the silent films I do love, but it's never like my go to. Like I'm never. It's never my go-to in terms of what I want to watch. It's like, oh, I'm going to watch a silent film today. I really have to be in the mood for it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Well,
I
what do you
enjoy
think? Oh,
I
sorry.
en I enjoy A Page of Madness. I think it's a lot of fun. And That's a good film. That's a good one to pick, and I do think it has a very high chance of entering the collection because Gates of Hell is another film
Ooh, yeah,
from Kinugasa, who is a director that's in the collection already. He also wrote An Actor's Revenge, which is another film in the Criterion Collection. I personally have not seen that one, nor have I seen Gate of Hell, but I know that that is a film that Carlos picked up in a Criterion
yep,
Hall a year or so ago.
yeah. That was Jen's like blind pick that she had one of those days. I haven't. I
Nice.
still haven't seen it yet. So, but I feel like I probably would like it because I liked Page of Madness so much. Um, and Actor's Revenge looks incredible too. Like I've seen like stills from that. I think I blind raked it a few times, and that film looks fucking immaculate in terms of like imagery.
It does. Yeah, I agree.
I really want to see that. I was Criterion shopping with Charlotte, and I didn't know what the hell it was, and then she pointed it out to me, and ever since then, I've been meaning to watch it. Plus, I mean, I'm sorry, mental health facilities or insane asylums, however
The
you prefer to say it. Uh,
loony bin.
under underrepresented in the Criterion Collection. I mean, Shock Corridor can't be the only one.
Yeah.
We need Page of Madness, and we
One flew
need
over
one
the cuck.
for
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
All right.
All right,
What's
Bill,
your
what you
number
got?
two?
Number two.
My number two. Okay, I'm actually gonna cheat and do a trilogy of films
Oh,
from this director because there's no movies from him in the collection. And one of these three films I think we all like and we all appreciate, but the other two are very underrated gems in horror. And, you know, I'm a big proponent for South Korean cinema, and I don't know what the fuck Criterion's been smoking on, but whatever it is, it must be the anti-Korean cinema pipe because what do they have? They have Parasite, Memories of Murder, and Secret Sunshine. And that's it, right? That's the only ones. I mean, you could argue Okja from Bong Joon-ho, but that's an American production. So they're tripping balls, big balls, and I think that they deserve a trilogy box set from Kim Ji-woon, his Evil trilogy, which consists of The Quiet Family from 1998, A Tale of Two Sisters from 2003, and The Behemoth I Saw the Devil from 2010. Three absolute icons of horror cinema that are also icons for Korean history. One of them being a fable from Korean history, which is A Tale of Two Sisters, and then, of course, a comedy horror, The Quiet Family, which was later remade into The Happiness of the Katakuris from
Ooh.
Takashi Miike. And then, of course, I Saw the Devil, which is one of the most bone-chilling serial killer films you could ever watch in your life. Um, Three films I think are excellent, excellent horror films that each explore a different subgenre, which is all three are corners that are very, very underrated. And yeah, Kim Ji-woon is just a director that no one really talks about. He really is a great guy. I mean, yeah, he made that shitty film with Arnold Schwarzenegger. What is it? What is it?
The Last Stand.
The Last Stand. Oh my gosh, that's such a goofy, terrible brain rot film. But um, when he's directed films in his native country, like also A Bittersweet Life is great. The Good, the Bad, and the Weird is such a funny comedy that makes fun of every Western ever. But the Evil trilogy would be awesome to see come to the collection. That's my pick.
I've only, like you said, I've only seen I Saw the Devil, but I would actually go as far as to call that movie a masterpiece. I think it's one of the greatest revenge films ever made.
Hell yeah.
And on a side note, funny enough, I did watch The Last Stand in theaters with my mom, and That movie sucks more dick than Lisa Ann. That's all I will say about that.
Whoa. Damn. You heard it here first, folks.
Beautiful. Um, I've only seen I Saw the Devil. I haven't seen the other two fucking movies, so I can't say much. But in terms of I Saw the Devil, yes. I'll just say yes. Absolutely yes.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to pick one of the three, I would go with I Saw the Devil. But since those two other films are so underrated and I don't even think they have a DVD release. Like, there's fuck all with those two films. And I think that those two movies should get properly restored along with I Saw the Devil. Give it a 4K.
Yeah.
If they did a Greg Araki trilogy, they could do another trilogy from a director.
Yeah, Sammy's reviews and when she appeared in my top five 21st century horror films, she picked I Saw the Devil. Like, I don't know
So
where she put it, but she put it up there and she had a lot of great things to say about that movie. So if you want to hear her talk about it extensively, watch that video.
that's very based.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely based.
super based pick. Um,
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it's a very pretty looking movie too. Like as fucked up as it is, like it's a really fucked up movie, but in terms of lighting and colors, that movie looks fucking vibrant and gorgeous and so crisp.
Absolutely. The shots in the greenhouse is what sticks to me the most.
Oh yes,
Yes, like that
yes,
that zoom in of Choi Min-sik with the sickle and all the little plants dangling around him and his red sweater. There's just so much to to that sequence that's outstanding.
uh,
Also the ending where he's walking down the street, but I won't say anything else. But the tint of blue that's embodying him, so good. Such a just a vile movie.
yes,
It's just one of the most fuck you the world is full of despair
yep,
movies you could ever watch. Where like there's no happy ending ever with revenge.
yeah. I think vile is the correct word. Choi Min Sik in that movie is fucking
Oh my
vile.
God. He is evil. He's
Yeah,
just one of the most disgusting humans I've ever seen depicted in movies.
yep. I absolutely agree. I almost couldn't even believe it. Like I was like, damn, this shit is going far
It
into
goes
hell with
far.
this character. I was like,
Yeah.
shit.
It really takes you by surprise how far this movie goes into
Yeah,
their little web of blood, really, web of violence and destruction. Like
yeah,
destruction with everyone in their path. Like it's just it's so chaotic and insane. And also Byung-hun Lee is a Korean actor that doesn't get enough praise at all. He's outstanding as the protagonist in the film.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
definitely deserves his cake in cinema history. I know everyone talks about Song Kang-ho, but and Choi Min-sik, but Byung-hun Lee is a great performer. And the fact that he does his own stunts in the movie and just absolutely gives it his all in his performance. And he's able to match Choi Min-sik in a lot of scenes is such a amazing action revenge thriller. It's just a great genre film all around. Like not just horror, but there's so much to it beyond that.
yeah. I 100% agree. I I know I was
Oh,
just gonna say I need to see the other two movies that put in that trilogy. But yeah.
is the wailing is South Korean, right? If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
I believe
Yeah, that
so.
is. I forgot
Yeah,
about that movie. That's a good one.
I I was gonna put it in my top five, but then I swapped it for another movie, and I feel bad now because Bill is right. I believe South Korea is definitely um, it's it needs more representation in the Criterion Collection.
Yeah. And I agree. The Wailing is a really great horror film. Very just skin crawlingly creepy and ugh. There's I don't know. And the fact that it also tackles like the I don't know, kind of like the racism that can occur between different countries because of the World War II, what occurred because all of it have you seen The Wailing, Carlos?
Yes.
He reviewed it.
I
Oh,
reviewed
okay.
it. Yep.
Yeah. Like the way that everyone in the community just assumes it's the Japanese man.
Yeah.
That's just there's
Yeah.
so much to it. It's a lot more than just a horror movie. But yeah, The
Yeah.
Wailing is a great one.
Well, I swapped it out because I haven't seen it in a few years, and obviously, like I, I, it's something I would want to rewatch before I'd like talk more in depth about it over the pod. So that's why I didn't put it in my top five, but it nearly made it.
No
Um,
worries. You can go ahead, Perry, with your number two if you'd like.
my number two, and again, this is another film. I don't care if it already has a release. I need this in the Criterion Collection. This is my favorite Yorgos Lanthimos film. It is what made Carlos famous, The Killing of a Sacred Deer from 2017.
Very nice.
Yeah, so most of y'all know that watch this channel, like the first video that ever blew up on Carlos's channel was his Killing of a Sacred Deer analysis. And this is not only my favorite Yorgos Lanthimos film, this is one of my favorite films, period. I think this film is brilliant. Um, and I think I honestly like I love how the film nothing is spelled out for you. Like it basically Colin Farrell, he's not the most reliable protagonist because he says what he says, but you get this feeling of maybe he's lying. Maybe Barry Keoghan actually has just motivation for what he's doing. Not trying to justify what Barry Keoghan does in the film, but the way Barry Keoghan kind of like incorporate like basically forces himself into Colin Farrell's life and into his family's life. It's incredibly it's very subtle, but it's very disturbing at the same time, and it's very off-putting considering how clinical the film is, how cold everything is. It feels very much like a Stanley Kubrick film. Like those shots in the hospital hallways, they definitely feel like something that would be ripped right out of The Shining. And I think Barry
Absolutely.
Kagan brilliant in the movie. I think all the performances, Nicole Kidman, Colin Farrell are just fantastic across the board. Even the child actors, and y'all know I'm not the biggest fan of child actors. I will be that person to criticize a child actor if they're not bringing it. Even the child actors bring it in the movie. Um, yeah, because a lot of people watch this movie and they get thrown off by like how mannered and how matter of fact all of the line delivery is. But I think that adds to the uneasiness of the film. Like it's obviously a deliberate choice, and I think it pays off. And I think Killing of a Sacred Deer is Yorgos Lanthimos' magnum opus. I mean, there's movies I love from him: Kinds of Kindness, Poor Things, Dog 2, The Favorite. But I'm gonna say right here, I think Killing with Sacred Deer is his masterpiece, in my opinion.
Damn. I love the killing of a sacred deer. Again, like I owe so much, like I have so much gratitude for that movie just because, like you said, that movie really helped this channel give so much expose this channel to a lot of film lovers out there. And I made that fucking analysis like 7 fucking years ago or more. Um, and yeah, like I still get comments on that like every now and again. And it's a movie that I watched again. I watched for the third time, I think, 2 years ago. And yeah, it's wonderful. Like I love the Shining comparisons because that was something that I noticed on first watch. I feel like he definitely like took inspiration from like those hallway shots and even like the use of score. Like throughout this film, the use of score, there is just like there's like this lingering sound that we get throughout the experience that always make you feel on edge. Honestly, like the score to The Shining to me is one of the best scores ever
Yeah,
because like it is such a integral element to the experience of the movie because of how constant like there's not only is there a psychological element to it because of how it just makes you feel so on edge and like in your own space, but it is just such a fucking like haunting and unsettling score throughout the experience. And The Killing of Sacred Deer kind of takes a page out of that book to where throughout the experience you are just constantly feeling unsettled and unedged and uncertain about what's coming next. And yeah, so I think that's a fucking awesome pick because I really like I really like The Killing of Sacred Deer. That was the first Latino film that I've ever seen. After that, I watched The Lobster. Then after The Lobster, I watched Dogtooth, and then from there on, it was like the favorite, the Poor Things, and and then obviously now with Kinds of Kindness, and I dig everything that dude has made. I haven't seen Alps yet, but you know, everything that I personally have seen from him, I think is great. So
Mm. What do you think of Killing of a Sacred Deer, Bill?
Oh,
this man just
I
hates
Oh,
this man just hates A24 horror. I don't know what else to say.
we got to add this one to the list of reappraisals, boys. I don't know.
damn.
As soon as she started singing the Ellie Goulding song in the movie, I'm like, all right, we gotta. What's going on? We gonna let it burn, 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 burn.
Bill, we're
When
just
that
on a
happened,
different wavelength
I
today,
think
aren't
we are.
we?
I think there's something up. But I love yogurt. I love yogurt. I love his movies so
Yogurt.
much. Like The Lobster, must see masterpiece. The Favorite, must see masterpiece. Dog Yawn, must see masterpiece. Yawn Things, must see masterpiece. I haven't seen Kinds of Yawnness, but I gotta watch that next. I know, I know I'm gonna love that one. I think Alps and Canetta are utter dog shit. I think both those movies are actually really bad. And
Alps,
really,
aka Yawns.
yeah, yelps, you know.
Yelps.
Bill,
Hit,
I guess you could say Bill climbed that mountain, so we don't have
yeah,
to.
Yonetta is really bad too. Early yogurt like is a little too
Bro, you are
expired.
tripping. You are
But
tripping.
no,
Early
no, but
early yogurt is the best yogurt. I'm
early
sorry.
yogurt's a little expired, a little too much
Uh,
probiotics in there. A little too many, but once he hit Dogtooth, he hit right. Like he hit some cinema.
oh
And
well,
I
well,
think
that's what I mean. I'm when I say early yogurt, I mean Dogtooth, Lobster, and Killing of a Sacred Deer. That's what
oh,
I
I
mean.
think I think that's like golden era
Okay.
yogurt. Yeah, I think early yogurt is when he made films in Greece
Okay.
and
Okay.
when they were non-English films. And then of
Well,
course Dogtooth. Dogtooth was like the gap. Like that was
okay. Yeah.
the bridge to like fucked up cinema that he was exploring. And so Killing of the Sacred Deer, it's just maybe that's just a pothole. Maybe I was just in a bad mood when I watched it or something, but I don't really like Barry Keoghan's character in the movie at all. And since we see so much of that little fucker, he it really gets to me after a while. I also think that they underutilize Nicole Kidman's character. I think Nicole Kidman is like one of the best actresses to ever grace the silver screen. And I don't know, I feel like her character wasn't that I don't know, I don't remember a lot of Killing of the Sacred Yawn, but from what I remember is that I didn't like Barry, I didn't like the Ellie Goulding song, I didn't like a lot of aspects of the movie. I also think it's kind of like a Funny Games ripoff to an extent.
Oh, God damn it.
Come
I
on,
know,
bro.
No,
a low blow, but
I don't
Ripoff?
agree.
Nah.
I think
Inspired, perhaps, but not ripoff.
I don't know, maybe 2013 to 2017 A24 horror just wasn't my thing, except for the Vivitch.
I think I think you need to go back and watch all these movies. Not saying that your opinion isn't valid now. Of course it is. But how long has it been since you've seen all these movies that you don't like?
Killing of a Sacred Yawn. I watched this 2020.
Oh, okay.
4 years. A lot can happen in 4 years. Because I mean, look what's happening with my critical reappraisal phenomenon. Movies I didn't fuck with like 2, 3 years ago. I'm
Yeah.
hitting them to 10 out of 10s.
I also watched It Comes at Night around the exact same time as well in 2020.
Oh, okay,
I saw
okay.
that one too. And then
Also,
un-
pandemic time. You really think it's a great time to be watching It Comes at Night and Killing of a Sacred Deer? Of course, you're not going to gravitate towards it.
that's
It's
true.
just, it's just like Mr. Morale being released during the pandemic.
Wow.
It's a phenomenal album. The world just wasn't ready for it, and a lot of the naysayers don't realize that they weren't ready to gravitate towards it because they weren't in the mind space to gravitate towards that album during the pandemic.
I thought you said the last time you watched It Comes at Night was in 2017. It's theatrical release.
I lied. I like to lie. I was looking at my letterbox. I like to spread false information on the internet. And I looked at my letterbox and I saw that I logged all three films around July of 2020.
Oh
So
shit.
I must have been on a binge, like you guys were saying, like you got to watch these movies. I was thinking I got to watch these movies, and I was like, wow, these are dog shit, back to back to back. So
Dog tooth, more like dog shit. I'm just
no,
kidding.
Dogtooth is cinema. I don't
Thank
get
you.
it twisted.
All right, good.
That was good. That was a good yogurt flavor for sure. That was like raspberry yogurt, and then killing
Mixed
of a
berry.
killing of a sacred deer was like lime yogurt, like something that's just a little too twangy for me.
I'm glad I'm actually picking films that are sparking a bit of controversy. It's better than just picking like
Yeah.
the super obvious, agreeable ones. Like, oh yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah, man, that should be
Yeah,
in.
I thought you'd pick that one to be honest. I was surprised because
I tried. Oh, sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead.
that's a very Perry core film.
I mean, it's probably my favorite horror film of all time. I'm just trying to, I don't know, uh, I guess not go for the super obvious ones that have like,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's
Also,
entertaining.
yeah.
Also,
Yeah. You're probably gonna say it also already has like 4K releases and shit.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's true.
but
What's your
I don't
number
know.
two?
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead. No,
Well, no. I was just gonna say like, um, I mean, I can expect people to be divisive on It Comes at Night because people are still even in the Kino community, people are divisive on It Comes at Night. But I didn't expect like Under the Skin and Killing a Sacred Deer to be a controversial pick tonight. But here we are. But I'm kind of
It's
glad.
just a it's just a me thing, you know. That's all. It's just a
No, but I
me.
think it's good. I was just gonna say like I think it's good. Like I always like having like a difference of opinion, on
yeah,
videos.
yeah. It makes for a more entertaining video, and I kid you not, there's going to be people in the comment section who are in
Yep.
Bill's camp, and they're like,
Yep.
"Fuck you, two pretentious dickheads,
Yep.
Bill Griff all the way."
Yep.
No, they're gonna say the opposite. Like Bill Jan Griff right here needs to pull out the. Was he some kind of square? He needs to get.
Some kind of square going on.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
I'm not saying I should specify to the comments section. I will give these movies another shot, and that also I don't knock anyone for liking these movies. And I completely understand why the movies are highly regarded. And I think there are a lot of great aspects about the movies. I don't think they're 1 out of 10 in the slightest. No way, Jose. I don't think you could even put those three films in that category. It's almost impossible to I mean, maybe there's got to be someone out there that's given all three films a 1 out of 10 and think they're like the absolute dookie of the earth. But
Yeah.
I
Scum of
don't,
the earth.
I think that's actually insane if people think that way about those movies. But they're just not my flavor. You know, they're okay. They're at the very least, they're like okay. They're like okay films.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair
It's
enough.
not as bad as Toy Story 2. I'm just
Damn it!
kidding.
I
Oh.
knew that was coming.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's also in there. That's also in there. It's just a meme at this point. I'm just kidding.
Your Toy
Good
Story
movie.
2 rating gives me nightmares, bro. I'm not gonna
Good
lie.
movie. Good movie. Good
Um,
movie.
all right. Um, all right, I'm just gonna go with my number two now. You know what? I gotta say, I'm really excited about the fact that so far we haven't had any repeats. Um,
Yeah.
I thought for sure by now we would have at least like one repeat between all three of us. Maybe that'll change now. We'll see. But for my number two, I'm gonna go with a film called Martyrs.
Ooh.
Um, this is a film that is not only shocking as fuck and incredibly graphic and boundary pushing, but this is a film that is also incredibly thematic and has, I feel, a lot to say about certain subjects, philosophically speaking. Um, Again, like this is not a film for the squeamish or the lighthearted. This film goes quite far, graphically. There's a lot of fucking, torture and, bloody sequences and body horror and things like that. Um, and again, and there's also a huge like psychological element to this movie that kind of like really like kind of gets you inside the psyche of not only the torture but just like the mental torment of what is going on with these characters, especially the main character going on here. But um, it's a film that really, really like pushes your buttons. But by the end of it, I found it very compelling. Not only like narratively, but like again thematically. Like I feel like Martyrs is a film that has a lot to say about humanity's obsession with salvation and afterlife, and our again like obsession with wanting to live forever and doing whatever it takes to kind of gain that knowledge. And um I don't know. This film again, like it's gonna push your buttons, it's gonna push some boundaries, but I feel like at the end of the day, there's a purpose to it. And I felt like by the end of the film, I only saw again, this is a film that I only saw once, one time. But I remember so much of it and it really stuck with me. And I feel like there's something to be said about films like that, where because I've seen films like only once, but like 2 months ago that I don't even like remember that well. But I saw Martyrs like fucking 6 or 7 years ago, and I remember so much about it. I remember the impact. I remember the imagery. I remember the narrative elements. I remember the character elements. I remember the philosophical elements. I remember the graphic elements, and it's just there's something to be said about cinema that's able to have that level of impact with you and that level of resonance with you. And Martyrs definitely checks that box incredibly well. Um, and yeah, and again, on top of that, there's not really a good release for that, not from my knowledge. I mean, there's like some okay releases or whatever, but nothing too special. And again, to me, this would make a great fit for the Criterion Collection. It's shocking cinema, but very artful cinema that I think has a pretty decent cult following. And I think a lot of people would pick up on Criterion if it did release. So, um, yeah, that's all I got to say about it.
Yeah, that's quite possibly one of the most fucked up movies ever made, and I agree with you. Should be in the collection. I love that movie for even though I have it at a 5 out of 10, I love that movie. You know, I love it a lot. I would never watch it again. I would only rewatch it if I were to watch it with someone who has no idea what it's about, just to see their reaction. It's one of those reactionary films that seeing it with someone is just a really rewarding experience to have because of how notoriously messed up it is. Um,
Do you mostly have it at a 5 out of 10 for like sensitivity reasons, or
I don't know. I don't know why it's a 5 out of 10. It just it's a bit of both, you know. I I I don't know. It's hard to explain, but Martyrs, I do look back on it very fondly, which is a weird thing to say about that movie. But I don't know. I agree with what you said. It's one of those shocking films that is so notorious and so famous, at least with the in the cult horror community, that I think it does need to be remembered forever in film history, and it probably most certainly should be added in the Criterion Collection. Any boutique label, really. Does it have like a release
I
at
don't
all?
think so. I mean, I did a little bit of research and I don't see like an actual like boutique label releasing it. I could be wrong, but if anybody in the comment section knows anything I don't, please let it be known. But from my knowledge, nah.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus French Extremity, like as far as I know, I don't think there's a French Extremity film in the Criterion Collection. And I mean, say what you want about the movement. I do think like if Criterion Collection is committed to capturing the history of world cinema, then we do need some French Extremity uh films in the collection. And I'm glad Carlos put Martyrs on there, not only because I love the film personally, but I was gonna put In My Skin from 2002 on my top five. So I'm glad we have some French Extremity representation in our in the podcast, because there's plenty of great French Extremity films out there, like Martyrs, like In My Skin, like Revenge, like Gaspar Noé films, and it's like where are the releases at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We we can't get a Criterion release for one of those films.
That's such a good name drop, Perry. Thank you for bringing up In My Skin. I That's such a good movie. I love that film.
Yeah.
Oh, and Titan, of course, and Raw, like more French extremity films, and one of them just
Yeah.
won a freaking Palme d'Or for crying out loud.
Yeah,
It's
it's a neon release. What the fuck are they doing? They could get the
yeah,
rights.
yeah, and typically Palme d'Or winners like get Criterion releases, like Taste of Cherry, for example, and I Daniel Blake,
Yeah, and then most recently Parasite, um,
Parasite.
Anatomy of a Fall, Triangle
Yep.
of Yonness, Paris, Texas,
Yep.
all sorts of films. Probably
Um,
probably Anora also, since that's neon and it's directed by Sean Baker, so that's just a recipe for a Criterion that's already going to come out.
Wages of Fear, I think, is a Palme d'Or winner, and that's in the Criterion Collection.
Yeah. But God forbid they put a French extremity film in there that's not Mr. Klein. That's the most extreme French film they can get to.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Extremely boring.
I
Yeah.
think I think it's easier to survive watching Martyrs. I think it's a lot easier to survive watching Martyr than it is to watch Mr. Klein, because
Yeah.
my God, that movie put me to sleep.
Easily. Easily. Oh my
Okay,
God.
Jada watching this having a seizure.
I'm gonna, because Jada asked me so politely, I will give it a critical reappraisal. I'm, um, just don't expect me to go from like what I have it as, like a six, or like a lipstick six, or a strong 5 out of 10 now, to like a fucking 9 out of 10, because I don't see a world where that's gonna happen. And what's crazy is every film I've given a critical reappraisal up until this point, and I've done 17 now, I have boosted my rating significantly for all of these movies. So I'm waiting for that one film that I give a critical reappraisal to, and I still
Well,
fuck with it.
well, I think Boyhood begs to differ.
Oh, that's not a critical reappraisal, because I never finished watching that movie.
Oh, you just turned it off and then wrote that big review?
No, no, the first time I tried to get through it, I'm like, wow, I hate this so much. And then
Oh,
so when
okay.
I reviewed it, that was like I literally like forced myself, like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get through Boyhood. And I'm like, this movie fucking blows.
We'll see a critical reappraisal of it then soon.
No,
No,
hell no.
no. That's a
I
lost cause.
I rewatched it recently and I actually lowered my rating because of the third act. I thought as soon as Mason turned 17 years old, God, he became such an asshat of a person.
Thank you.
His dialogue gave me chills down my spine that it was so cringy. It was so cringe. I was like,
Because he
nope.
grows up and he turns into a bullshit pseudo philosophical Linklater
Oh,
character.
It's like, but it's not Linklater. It's like worse. It's worse than Linklater.
I would say that's prototypical Linklater right
It's
there.
like the devil probably. He became like a character from the devil
Oh God.
probably.
Yeah, you're
Didn't he
right.
though? He kind of was like the main guy.
You're right. No, you're right. I could definitely see the devil probably. God.
The diarrhea probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yawn hood. All right. Sorry about bringing that up, but
no, you're
yeah,
good.
that's very very
Anyway,
creepy.
Martyrs. I'm just kidding.
Anyways, Martyrs is a much better movie than Mr. Klein and Boyhood. And yet both those films are in the collection, so I think that's obvious that if those get in there, this definitely has a spot. It's a good pick, Carlos.
Thank you. Thank you. With that being said, I think it's time to move on to our number ones. So,
Number one.
Bill
Holy shit.
Griff, the Bill Griff, it's time to unveil your number one.
I saved my number one for last because I was thinking one of you might throw it out there, but you haven't yet. That was awesome. So this one is, even though I said they're not in adult order, this one is honestly the number one film I want to see added. That is in the horror subgenre. This is from 2011. Yep, 2011. The Skin I Live In from Pedro Almodovar.
Nice.
This movie rocks my socks off. It is so good. It is everything I love from a thriller, from Almodovar's filmography. If you know Almodovar, he he is a champion of melodramatic cinema, having bombastic female performances, very, very vivid set design. Like the color spectrum in his films are decadent. The use of just gorgeous reds, especially, is fully encompassed in his films. And then, of course, the cherry on top is the fucked up twists that occur in almost every one of his films. The Skin I Live In has one of the best twists I've ever seen in a movie. And um I'm trying to think if there's any release at all for this movie beyond maybe a region B or C Blu-ray somewhere in the Netherlands or
I don't
in
think there
somewhere in
is.
Asia. There isn't really.
Nope.
And I think that's such a shame. I think this movie needs to be remembered and it needs to be respected and cherished in the cult horror community and in Spanish cinema as well. Almodovar only has three movies in his in the Criterion Collection, and they're like they're not considered his most famous. You know, they don't have The Skin I Live In, they don't have Pain and Glory, they don't have Talk to Her, Voltaire. All those movies need to get in there, but The Skin I Live In, especially, such a great horror film. Um,
Yeah, the skin I live in, I feel like is such an appropriate choice because again, like you said, I mean, Almodovar already has a good handful of films in the collection, and the skin I live in is like arguably like his most famous movie at this point, like
yeah,
his most popular one, and yeah, I mean, I actually reviewed that entire movie. I have a review for, I think I reviewed it like 2 years ago or maybe more than that, maybe three or four. I don't know. It's been
yeah.
a long time,
I've seen
but
your review. It's really good.
thank you so much. But I think it's an excellent movie. Like I agree with everything you said. Um, I remember when watching it, like I got into like a huge, like heated debate with Jen because she didn't really like it, for certain reasons. It's because it has again, I'm not trying to give the twist away, but it definitely it transitions from like dealing with women's issues to dealing with other issues.
Yeah,
And and I feel like that kind of turned her off, and I could see it turning other people off. Um, but I feel like in terms just of like presentation and in terms of subversion, it is incredible. And I really, really love a movie that can subvert my expectations in a way um that is not only again narratively compelling, but like thematically intriguing. And it is a fucking haunting and horrifying movie in a lot of ways. So, and like
Yeah,
you said, like in terms of just like aesthetic shit, like production and colors, it's fucking phenomenal.
I know that was also a critical reappraisal of Perry's, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's one of the earliest ones. I think it was, I think the second critical reappraisal I ever did. Um, and yeah, I think it's a perfect film. And I also think Pain and Glory is a masterpiece. But if I had to say what Almodovar's best film is, what his magnum opus is, I have to go with The Skin I Live In. Structurally, I just think it's perfection. I mean, it's perfect. I think it's incredibly substantive. I think the acting is just top notch. I think it's Antonio Banderas is just so terrifying in the movie. His performance really haunts me. I mean, I can just picture the expression he had on his face in that film. Like they just are really ingrained in my head. Um, and it's funny because I think it ends perfectly because where it ends, it opens up so many questions from other characters, but the film just like cuts to black, and that's all you're gonna get. Um you're not gonna see what feels like the epilogue. Like it just cuts at that particular time, and opens so many questions for these other characters that are wondering, what the hell happened? How can this be? And I just love the fact that it ends on that note, as opposed to like having the character like explain what happened to them. Um, it's I don't know. I can't believe I didn't love it as much as I do now the first time I watched it. But I'm a big proponent of people rewatching films. Obviously, not every film because we have a limited time on Earth, but like the um, kind of the films that we hear so much are great. I feel like if you don't connect with them, I think it's important to give them a second chance. Cause who knows? Maybe you'll feel entirely different a few years down the line or a few months down the line. Um,
Yeah.
it, it's um, yeah, that's all I'll say for him. The Skin I Live In.
All right. Well, in that case, we should probably move on to your number two, dude.
You mean my number one?
Number one. Sorry, number one. Yep.
You see, I knew this film is not going to be on either one of your lists because I don't think either one of you particularly like this movie. I personally really love this movie.
Okay.
Um, and that is it's a film from 2006. Um, this beloved auteur filmmaker, master filmmaker, doesn't have any film in the Criterion Collection. I think that's a crime. And I didn't go with the most obvious horror film that he's made. I went with something that I think is extremely underrated. And Mark Kermode is actually a huge champion of this film. This is Bug by William Friedkin.
Fuck yes. I love this movie. I love Bug.
Sorry, my allergies are really bad. I apologize.
You're good.
So the crazy thing about Bug is it was filmed, I believe, in Mississippi or somewhere in the southern states. I mean, somewhere in the Bible Belt. And the production wrapped 3 weeks right before Hurricane Katrina.
Then I had no
They
idea.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like that's such a crazy coincidence that like the production of this movie wrapped like right before a disaster like Hurricane Katrina. But anyways, going back to the film itself, I y'all know I'm a huge fan of chamber pieces. Y'all know I love it where the films just take place in one location. Let's put these really phenomenal actors in this one location, and let's see how the characters evolve from there. And Bug is definitely that type of movie. If that's what you're into, you're really gonna love this film. um, William Friedkin is a master filmmaker, and the fact that he doesn't have a film in the Criterion Collection, I think, is criminal. I mean, this is the director behind The Exorcist, for crying out loud. And I know The Exorcist probably has a crazy 4K release, and that's why I went with Bug instead of The Exorcist. I actually have an Exorcist hoodie that my mom gave me that I didn't put on for this podcast because it's obviously really hot. But going back to the film itself, I think Michael Shannon and Ashley Judd are absolutely brilliant in this movie. Michael Shannon is a fantastic actor, and honestly, this is probably my favorite performance from him. I mean, the way he plays this really paranoid induced um, schizophrenic, this paranoid schizophrenic. I think it's brilliant. He's incredibly subtle at first, but the film it just ramps up as the film starts to spiral more and more into insanity. And I love films like that. And I love how the film tackles loneliness and how we'll buy into the most irrational things and will go along with the most irrational things simply because we want to feel loved or we want a sense of belonging. And I think that this film explores that incredibly well because Ashley Judd just kind of this lonely waitress, and as inexplicable as the things Michael Shannon is saying, she finds herself more and more drawn in by what he has to say. Um, and a lot of that has to do with the trauma that she's experienced from other men, and you're seeing how that has an effect on her as well. It's just so incredibly layered uh in terms of care in terms of a character study. I think it has a lot to offer, and it's very substantive. It's not just one of these horror movies where nothing happens for the first two acts, and then uh, everything insane happens to you at the last 10 minutes of the film, and it's not built up at all. It's like no, this film is incredibly methodical in terms of how it's paced, in terms of how characters come into the narrative. How they come into the motel room and exit. It's almost like you're watching like the world's most demented stage play, if I had to describe it. It's incredibly incendiary in terms of visuals. It's so incredibly striking. It's so harrowing. I mean, I can't praise this film enough. It's mind blowing. It's really hard to put in words how how incredible this movie is.
Yeah, bro. I'm with you 100%. I think Bug was actually that's probably my blind wreck, I think,
Yeah,
way back in the day.
yeah,
And I love this movie too. Like, I don't know. It's just, again, as you mentioned, I think the performances all around are fantastic. And the screenplay is fucking out of this world great. And yeah, like on top of everything you said, I do think that there is something to be said about kind of like American paranoia and
hmm,
like our our tendency to gravitate towards conspiracy as well. There's a huge like conspiracy element to this film and how
yeah,
that's related to paranoia. And I think like in this day and age, it's only gradually gotten worse than ever. But um, like I just again like because even today, like we talk about how everybody kind of lives in their own like alternate reality, and facts are
hmm,
becoming more fucking flaccid than they ever have been before. Um, but this is a great like kind of like examination on that to where like reality becomes so distorted and it becomes so distorted to the to to the point where there's literally no objective standard to anything. Like what you perceive as reality is purely based on, in this particular case, the person that you love is just explaining, is
Yeah.
claiming. Um, and like you said, I feel like that has a lot to do with loneliness and like the yearning to be loved. So I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, no, this movie is fucking fantastic. I think functions not only like brilliantly as a horror film, but just as like a great, film in general.
Yeah, not to mention the themes of this film, like you said, I mean, are more prescient than ever, considering we have so many chronically online people, and
Yeah.
what the reality is based off of whatever the algorithm is feeding them.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what it is. And I mean, it's such a cliche thing now to say, but it's true. Like, we are more disconnected now than we have ever been, and I hate
Yeah.
saying because it's such a tired ass cliche, but it's so true. And you can see where people would buy into the most ridiculous things, simply out of like a sense of belonging or not having a sense of direction in their life.
Yeah.
Look at all of the cults we have over the years and still have to this day. Like, how could anybody buy into half the shit? Pretty much any of that shit, and yet still it happens. I mean, a thousand people will drink a fucking poison simply because of this one great leader. What this one great leader
Yep.
had to say.
Yeah, we still see that tendency till today, like to a pretty like intense degree. And I just think it does really showcase the importance of having a foundation of belief that's based on like reason and evidence. Like
Yeah,
if you don't have that foundation, I feel like you are more susceptible to things like cults and things like paranoia and things like that nature that can lead you astray. But if you have a strong foundation that is based on reason and evidence and science, I feel like you are less likely to be, like irrationally influenced by things like that. Um,
right.
you
It's
know,
like my mom always said: believe in something or you'll fall for anything.
there you go. Yeah, that's true.
Um, Bill, you, I know you're not the
You
biggest fan of Bug.
No, that's not true. I actually really liked the movie.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um,
Finally, I picked one
Carl
you like.
Carlos said essentially everything I feel towards the film. I think it's a great dissection of paranoia and how people can become indoctrinated into those thoughts when they're surrounded by them, kind of like a form of Stockholm syndrome manipulation. Once they're, especially with this film where they're stuck in this room and Ashley Judd's character just slowly but surely starts to believe in the theories and conspiracies that Michael Shannon's character views about the world and about what their situation is in the hotel room. The third act is so wild and out there you would never expect it. It comes absolutely out of nowhere. It is a great little film, great little psycho thriller film. That's a good pick, Perry. When you were gearing up to give your number one, I was very I was dreading what it was because you said you guys wouldn't like it. I was like, oh shit, what is it gonna be? Well, I was just kidding about Five Nights at Freddy's. I don't know it was really gonna come out, but
I just kind of said that as a misdirection. And not to
okay.
mention, I remember there was people in the Discord at the discussion at the time that weren't too huge on this movie.
Oh
I
yeah.
remember Ant-Man being a huge champion of this film, but I couldn't remember everybody that really liked this movie compared to the people who are like, uh, I don't see what's so brilliant about it.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's a good movie. I love Michael Shannon. He's great in that. Probably one of his best performances.
Which
Yeah, I
is
agree with
really
that.
saying something. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
I mean, I don't know. Personally, my favorite Michael Shannon performance is in Kangaroo Jack, but I don't know about
He's
y'all.
so good in that movie.
I don't know
That's
why, but I thought you were gonna say Nocturnal Animals, and then I should have
Nocturnal
known.
Animals is great too.
Yeah,
Yeah. He just loves being that little guy.
yeah.
He
I
just runs
mean,
around.
Nocturnal Animals ain't no Kangaroo Jack, but it's
He just gets down to diabolical shit in the desert.
he
That's
yeah.
just that's his niche.
I should have known you were gonna say something like jokingly as opposed to say the serious thing. I should have
Yeah.
known.
I has anyone here seen 99 Homes with him? That's a very
No,
underrated performance by him. He's really good in that movie.
I never
I've
heard it.
not
I
seen
never
that.
heard or seen that movie.
Me neither.
He plays an evictor for housing projects in Florida, I believe. And a man that he evicts, I think it's Andrew Garfield, loses his house and has to find a job, and he kind of takes him under his wing to become to get into the eviction profession just like him. And it just it's a movie that shows just how cold and heartless you have to be in that kind of mindset and that kind of profession, because Michael Shannon just plays a mean son of a bitch in that movie. Absolutely evil person.
Mm.
Um, Very underrated performance. I know Laura Dern is also in that movie. She's really good. No one ever talks about 99 Homes. I remember watching that movie like after midnight one day, and I was just completely blown away by that one. But yeah, Michael Shannon is one of those underrated performers that deserves more recognition for his work. And Bug
Also,
is a great
Take
example.
Shelter. We didn't even mention Take
Oh
Shelter.
yeah, Take Shelter's good too. Um, yeah, it's a good one. Or in World Trade Center with Nicolas Cage.
Oh
Nicolas Cage defeats terrorism,
my.
Single-handedly.
single-handedly holds the buildings up with his bare hands.
Have y'all seen the Michael Shannon film Man of Steel?
Oh, he's unironically really good in that, though. All things considered, he's probably the best part of that movie.
Yeah, you're right. I will find him.
Yeah, his little mustard goatee he's got on.
All right. Time for my number one pick.
Oh boy.
This is crazy. This means that none of us had any repeats whatsoever. I think that's spectacular.
Yeah.
I think it's like one of the first time it's ever happened, actually. But all right. So my number one pick is a very special film to me. And I think it's incredibly overlooked as fuck. Like I feel like there's so many people out there, even in the Kino community, that have no idea that this film exists. And I think that's a fucking shame. Um, the film that I'm talking about is a film that came out in 2018, and it's called The Wolf House or
Oh,
La Casa Lobo. Um, Directed by Cristobal Leon and Joaquin Cosina. Um, this is actually an animated film, stop motion animated horror film, which, by the way, Criterion is also lacking animations. Um, so they could kill two birds in one stone here with this one, including a horror film and an animated film. And this film is up there as one of the most unsettling horror films I have ever seen in my entire life. This entire film from start to finish put me on edge. And not only is it effective as a suspense horror film, and also just like as an avant-garde, like experimental film, but the craft behind it is impeccable. Um, I mean, again, this is a film that I also have a review on, but the craft that went behind this film is, I mean, it's bonkers. Again, as I mentioned, it's stop motion animation, and they used life-size replicas of all the props in this movie. So they're in a real like life-size house using life-size props. Like all the like human characters of the movie, all the props that you see are basically like, whatever, fucking 4 to 5 feet tall, actual cinema props that they had to recreate every scene. They had to paint the house in so many different ways for every single shot in this movie. I think it took them like over 6 years to make this movie. And it is artful as hell. It is terrifying as hell. And it is just such a haunting and anxiety inducing experience. And again, in terms of release, like this has one release. I guess it's available on Blu-ray by some company named like Stem Kim or some shit. But like no one gives a fuck about Stem Kim. Like, and also like there's no real special features. I mean, there's like I think they includes like short films from them, but that's it. There's no commentary, there's no interviews, there's no behind the scenes features. And it's like this movie deserves all that shit, especially like behind the scenes stuff. Like there has to be behind the scenes footage of this fucking movie. There has to be. And it does not, I'd be severely disappointed, but there's gotta be. I mean, they filmed this movie over the course of 6 years. Somebody had to be filming like the process of this.
No.
And we need a proper release of this movie that just took so much artistry, so much effort, and Criterion is a perfect avenue for that because it's just this represents almost more than any horror film I can even think of right now that is all about like the like community contribution to the film art form and in terms of horror just like sincerely effective horror. Like it is genuinely suspenseful. It's quite abstract, like in terms of narrative, it doesn't quite it's not the most straightforward thing ever, but as a horror film, in terms of the vibes and what it's supposed to deliver, in terms of like feeling, it is so effective and so compelling. Um, a lot of people watch horror movies because they want to be scared. That's a common like piece of feedback that we get from people when they watch horror films. Is like, oh, I wasn't scared or whatever. This movie, even for those people that say that, this movie will at least give you that in a way because there's no way that you can watch this film and not feel uncomfortable and not feel unsettled because it's crafted in that kind of unsettling way. Um, and yeah, like I'm sorry, but like this movie is just it's too beautifully crafted and too effective as a horror film for me to not put this at number one. And on top of the fact that I feel like it doesn't have the best like Blu-ray release or 4K release, like it just needs to be up there. And especially on 4K. This movie just it deserves a 4K. Absolutely. Um, but yeah, that's all I'll say. The Wolf House number one. Also quick fact, the filmmakers behind this also helped construct the storyboard sequence that we see in Beau is Afraid by Ari Aster. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Awesome.
all that shit that we see there, like a lot of that was like again, like not only like inspired creatively by them, but was actually like, built by their own hands to craft that storyboard sequence. So um it's a little fun fact there. But yeah, Wolf House number one, that's my pick.
Absolutely perfect pick, Carlos. I was waiting for someone to pick that movie. And that's one of the films that I originally was thinking of adding in my top five, but I was thinking, no, someone's got to pick that. And I'm so glad you saved that for your number one.
Thank you.
That movie deserves to get the recognition. It needs to be in the Criterion Collection. It needs a beautiful restoration of it.
Yep.
It's so fucking revelatory, really.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only released in 2018, but it's just such an important movie, I
Yep.
think, for horror, for animated horror.
Yep.
The fact that it's all in just one fluid stop motion animation, it's all painting in this one room that they're just constantly painting more and more on top of it. And you can see them just adding layers and layers of paint over it. So you just know that all of those previous animations are still underneath the layers of paint as the movie progresses. And then, of course, not to mention the pig children,
Oh my
like
God.
creatures they
Yeah.
construct out of clay. It's just oh, it's really terrifying. And also the wolf, the narration of
Yep.
the wolf, that voiceover is
Oh, that
so
voiceover.
diabolical.
Oh,
It's
so
up there with
haunting.
It's up there with Black Phillip for being one of the most terrifying voices in cinema. That's such a great pick. Absolutely based pick.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a feeling that one of you was going to pick The Skin I Live In, and one of you was going to pick The Wolf House. That's why I made sure not to put it on my top five. And I mean, I was right. And if you think about it, there's only one stop motion film in the Criterion Collection, if I'm not mistaken, and that's Fantastic Mr. Fox. And I mean, also, the Wolf House is technically a propaganda piece. So is Soy Cuba, and look at that. That's in the Criterion
Yeah,
Collection.
yeah. I think Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. That's another one.
Pinocchio. Yep.
That's stop motion. But
Oh, well, it's coming, right? It hasn't been like,
no, it's out.
No, it's
Came out
out.
last
Yep.
year.
oh, it's already out.
Yep.
Yeah, but
So
it's
my Barnes and Noble doesn't have shit, so I didn't see it there.
I bought it during the flash sale back way back when. But yeah, that they're fucking struggling with animated films. They desperately need to add more into the collection. We should
Yeah.
Yeah.
we should dedicate an episode to like 5 animated films that need to be in the collection.
Oh yeah,
Hello,
that's a great idea.
Hello, Ratatouille. The
Yeah,
Yes.
literally, like
Unironically, yes.
not even a joke. That needs to be in there. And a Satoshi Kon box set. Like there's so much needs to be added that
Absolutely.
doesn't. And
I,
Wolf House is top of the list for sure.
I
Oh,
will say, to give Criterion some praise. I did recently watch Wally with our good friend Amore, and that movie's fantastic. I can't wait to pick that up on Criterion. So I'll give him a shout out for that.
I appreciate y'all watching Wally. I made that my movie night like a month ago.
Oh
I know,
yeah.
and nobody showed up.
I couldn't
Yeah,
come. My apologies.
I was the only one in voice chat. No one came to me to my movie night.
I
Wally
would
is
have showed
essential.
up.
Yeah, Wally's essential cinema for sure.
Oh yeah. I watched the
What a
4K on the big screen. I didn't mind that I was alone really because I got to watch it on 4K and that shit looks fucking gorgeous.
I bet.
Yeah, I think Wolf House is one of those like, there are horror films. There are very few horror films that have scarred me to the point where it's like I have trouble returning to them. Wolf House is definitely one of those films. I would say probably the three films I have the most trouble coming back to simply because they legitimately terrify me are The Wolf House, The Exorcist, and Martyrs. Like those are the three films that uh, I have trouble coming back to just because of um, how visceral how much they affect me on a visceral level.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like especially with again like with the Wolf House, it's a film like even after it's done, you feel like you're like still trembling because I feel like throughout the entire film, you really do feel like shaky on the edge because of the narration, of the way that just the vision and the way that like everything is presented, like Bill said, like it's all presented in this one shot, slow moving take. It just kind of like never gives you time to rest because it's just constantly moving. It's everything's constantly transforming into one morbid piece of imagery to another, and it's just relentless with it. So
Yeah. That's
yeah.
a great pick. Another film that also should get some recognition is Mad God from Phil Tippett.
Yeah.
That's
Yes, I was
another
gonna
stop
mention that.
motion horror. Yeah. I think that yeah, that came out 2022, I believe.
It took like
Yeah.
30 years to make that film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That movie's perfect. Same
Yeah.
with the Wolf House.
A
We did.
go ahead, Perry.
I was gonna say we did a movie night that Payne Raymond
Yep.
picked it, but I was so freaking tired when we watched it. I fell asleep. But I have seen it. Like I've watched it all the way through, and it is a great movie.
Oh yeah, that movie's insane. A honorable mention that I had for this list was actually the Blair Witch Project.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think that would be a really cool Criterion film.
That would
Because
be fun.
I do
Yeah.
think it is like a very important horror film, like in the horror film canon. Um, and also just like how influential it's been, and also the fact that I really don't feel like there's a proper like boutique release of it. I mean, you can find it like I think there's some like foreign releases that are kind of cool, but other than that, you kind of just get like basic Blu-rays for it, and you have like that kind of bullshit where they just lump it in with other horror films. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
here's the Blair Witch Project with Cabin Fever 2 in the same Blu-ray.
Oh yeah. I remember when they do that.
Yeah.
It just sucks that the Blair Witch Project is responsible for the found footage horror movement, which I think has to be one of the worst movements in horror. So many shitty found
I
footage
do.
movies.
One of the few found footage films that I appreciated though was Wreck, Marty
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
C.
about to mention Wreck.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. There are three movies that I am genuinely surprised none of you mentioned. The three being Possession, Santa Sangre, and Ken Russell's The Devils. I thought that those
Okay.
three films would be
Let me explain
mentioned.
myself. I thought about all three of those films. The
Yeah.
Yeah,
Devils, I did not pick because that was one of those films that I felt like were like an impossibility because of Warner Brothers, right?
yeah.
Um, I mean, the last that I heard of, like Warner Brothers is not giving it up. They're a play. They're parent. They still have the rights to it, and apparently they're just going to keep sitting on it for eternity until they figure out like what the fuck they're going to do with it. So I feel like they're never going to give that movie away, unfortunately. As much as I would love to see like an uncut 4K version of that on Criterion, are you fucking kidding me? That would be a dream. Um, but I feel like it's just not going to happen because of fucking Warner Bros.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other one you said, which was what was the other one you said?
Santa Sangre.
Son of Sangre. I only didn't pick that one because is it is it Vinegar Syndrome that has that, or who
You
has
own
that?
it. You own
Yeah,
it, goofball.
yeah, I own it, but I forgot who released it.
It might be like Shout Select or Arrow. I'll pull it out.
Um, oh, it's Severin.
Severin. Yeah, what
Um,
some random Blu-ray company.
yeah, that's kind of true. But it's I gotta say the release is pretty fucking good though. Like, there's plenty of special features, and the cover and the art is amazing.
It comes with a T-shirt for crying out loud.
It came with a T-shirt that I own already, so like, it's a it's a very impressive release in my opinion.
And
So
Possession has an incredible release too. Blair owns it. I'm not sure what the company is, but I mean, we watched it at her house for a movie night, and the packaging,
yeah,
the quality of the film, I mean, stunning.
Is it
yeah,
is it Umbrella Academy?
no, I think it's Mondo Vision.
Oh, Mondo. I know I have an Umbrella Academy release of it, and that's a pretty good Blu-ray.
Yeah, I was actually one of the films I had on my list for a little bit was the other Zulawski film called Diabel or The Devil.
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
one.
that's a movie that I had on my list, but um, some kind folks in the Discord server told me that um, Mondo is releasing like a whole trilogy that includes Diabel in it. So I was like, okay, well, let me not include that. But that would have been a good pick too. I would love to see Diabel on Criterion personally. Because I actually like Diabel more than Possession. Hot take, but I actually enjoyed that movie more.
Yeah.
Whoa, I'm not
Yeah.
with that.
You can't say that around the guy with the Possession t-shirt on.
Hey, I bought him that Possession t-shirt. That's a
Yeah.
gift.
That's true. It's very true. Um, yeah, and then of course there's the A24 films that I didn't mention, like The Lighthouse and like The
Yeah.
Witch. Like A24 is gonna,
Hereditary. Yeah.
yeah, they're all gonna have crazy releases for those. So I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not even bothered. Plus, it's like, plus I feel like it gave me the chance to highlight some like underrated horror gems and films I don't think get enough love. I mean, uh, come on, Bug, like William Friedkin doesn't
Yeah.
have Criterion like
Yeah.
a film in the collection. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. And they could do something really tasteful, like release Bug on like, I don't know, like his birthday or the day he passed or something something to memorialize William
Yeah.
Friedkin.
Yeah. In 2 years they could do it for the 20th anniversary of the film.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I was thinking of including the Black Coat's daughter as well.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
But Yeah, because I do really like that film a lot, but I only wanted to include really one A24 film. So I was like, nah, I'll just, I won't pick that one. But I do think that like if they did release that, I'll be fucking happy about that too.
For sure.
It is a great movie, but I don't know. It's like upper echelon. This needs to be in the collection
Yeah,
movie. Like I wouldn't go that far with it because Emma
yeah.
Roberts is in it and she's terrible.
I think she's good in the movie, but overall, like she's not like the best thing ever. Oh, man. You're like that fucking Jonah Hill meme where he's just like, no.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm referencing, which is funny enough because people that try to make fun of me say that I look like Jonah Hill,
I like that.
which I don't at all.
Oh shit. Well, fuck. This was a phenomenal episode. This
Yeah.
is what a great video and great discussion. Um, I love that we didn't have any repeats. Like,
Yeah, I like
No,
how broad all of our picks were, really. I think we tackled almost every kind of subgenre, supernatural, psychosexual thrillers,
no.
extremism. I even threw out a monster movie with Godzilla, like,
oh yeah,
Classic horror films as well.
yep,
Like, yeah,
crime, comedy, even like absurdism, like with the yogurt movie. You could argue that's a kind of a comedy.
or even
yeah,
Brain
for
Dead
sure.
too.
Brain
Yeah,
Dead, yes, definitely. Yeah, these are some great picks. I'd love to see just all 15 of them in a list and just see how wide of a variety they are. And from different decades, like Carlos with the 1920s pick,
Yeah.
that's a mythical poll right there.
Absolutely. Like it was just so great, like to see 15 completely different movies, like from all over the spectrum, be included here.
Yeah, and all
Like
over the world.
I think it definitely like represents like what we all believe like the Criterion Collection should be about.
yeah.
Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
thanks for y'all, thanks to y'all for joining. I'm incredibly grateful. Um, I think that the thing is just a great discussion, and I hope everybody else out there enjoys it. Don't forget to if you enjoyed everything here, if you enjoyed everything we had to say, give it a like and subscribe to my channel, but also subscribe to Bill Griff's channel if you never heard of him by chance. He
Yeah.
has great content.
Thank you. If you're not subscribed to the Misfit Pond and you're watching this, what the fuck are you doing? You got to get on him. He makes excellent, excellent film content on YouTube, and he's an all-around swell guy. He's a good guy. So,
Thank you.
yeah, of course. Subscribe to Perry's Letterboxd so you can read his critical reappraisals. He makes
Yep,
some really good reviews, and also he makes some pretty hilarious rants of movies he absolutely despises, like the Boyhood. That Boyhood review is so iconic. That's
it
one of the
is.
most notorious Perry reviews. I love it so much.
It is.
Thank
I
you.
I'll often find myself like going to find it and reread it every now and then because it's just so hilarious.
Yeah, it's so true.
Thanks.
Yeah. But all right, everybody. Thanks everyone for watching. And I hope y'all have an awesome night and happy continued Criterion shopping.